Okay, we're on.
Can I have the big part here? I'd like to call the November 18th meeting to order. It is 6:30 p.m. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have at least one addition to the agenda. Anything else?
Yeah, I have two additional additions.
Okay, so I have 6.1 for the personnel sublist.
Yep, I would like to add to 6.3 under policy, a discussion on DEI.
Okay.
And then I would like to ask to move under 6.3 second reading, move to 4.3 under the consent agenda in old business.
So the three
So,
policies.
yep,
Second readings.
second readings.
They're going to
4.3.
4.3.
Yep.
And then I just had one further question on the agenda. 7.7 under athletic update, it says the 2021 annual fire inspection has been completed and is on file in the district office. I'm assuming that doesn't need to go there. I'm not asking it to be changed, I'm just wondering where is that supposed to be?
It's not supposed to be there.
Well, I assume that.
Where are we going to put that?
I think that's just might be an old note.
Is that an old note?
Then it just get deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if,
We're just gonna delete it from that. It's still the athletics, we'll just delete that wording.
Okay.
Okay. So with those changes, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll move.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th regular meeting and October 28th special meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes for either meeting?
This didn't show up in the meeting, but I just want to clarify a point that Travis asked during last meeting during Bill's remarks, asked about the district teaching critical race theory and teaching certain things like the 1619 project. You said we're not doing that, but just to clarify, that's not a statement that the district doesn't want to do that or has or won't consider that. It's just not what we're doing.
Just not what we're doing.
Okay, just to clarify.
Thank you. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. So we are going to do the consent agenda, which is 3.1 through 4.3. I need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll move.
A second.
Discussion on any of the consent agenda items.
Yes. 4.2, winter coaches. Is this for a second boys modified team?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And budget calendar, anything different or unusual? Any changes?
No, this is assuming we're gonna have a normal in-person budget vote,
Right.
like we did last year. Hopefully we don't have to revert back what we did in 2020. And certainly the dates are certainly subject to change.
But the timeline's the same.
Right, basically we work backwards off of the third Tuesday, the standard statewide vote. Those meetings that are in bold are the public meetings. You know, a lot of the coffees and the discussions at the board meetings will depend on what we know and when we know it. This is certainly a working document and something that will be updated as we navigate the process. But this gives us a general timeline of when we plan on accomplishing things, roughly.
Now, the second reads, which are now 4.3, you'll find them in 6.3. Ellen, did you catch a,
Oh, I did, yes, thank you, because I would have brought that up at 6.
you had brought it up last month and it was still there. We just-
And it's the, now I gotta figure out which
Is
one
it
it is.
7440 and variations in social
7440, it's on the first page, 3A. Suspicion has ones and zeros in it instead of I's and O's.
Suspicious?
It does seem suspicious.
Right?
That's the only thing I found.
So, Bill or Debbie, how do we change that in the second read? Do we need to make a motion to amend it, or is it just noted?
Or be approved as amended?
Approved as amended.
Oh wait, I just found it again. Yeah,
Yep, on page, it says 204 at the bottom.
yeah, D.
Yep, it's all.
It's the same typo. I looked through it before too and didn't see it.
We'd approve amending that and any others that might appear.
Any other
Any grammatical?
identical errors?
Yeah.
I remember it was in there a couple of times.
And this is smaller, but just cleaning on the bottom, there's not a space, like when it says page 404, like a 4 is, so again, that's just a grammatical thing, but.
Well, what is that
Space
again?
between the of and the second number.
At the bottom.
At the bottom of every page.
204, 304, 404.
Oh, I see.
And if it matters, one doesn't matter.
So if I could, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended, all in favor? Aye. That brings us to public participation. If anybody would like to come forward, you're welcome to come to the microphone. Please state your name and remember that there is a 3-minute timeline. Seeing none.
Who took the action on the amendment of the consent agenda? Did I miss that? Who?
We did
We
it
just
as
voted. We need
amended.
to move and.
That was my question. right?
You gotta move it again. I mean, if you took it and Corey took action, Ellen took second it, and now you're changing it, so now we need another action.
Then I'll move to approve as amended.
Okay.
So I'll second that.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I misunderstood that, sorry.
Thanks, Doug.
Now we will turn it over to Mr. Trump for the nightlight presentation.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Distinguished guests. I'm happy to be before you tonight to say a few words and to recognize the recipients of this month's nightlight. Our team that's being recognized tonight, the school bus drivers here at HCS, are here tonight. Many of them are here tonight to receive a well-deserved honor. As we've returned back to in-person instruction this year, we knew that being able to do what we do in school is largely contingent upon what these folks do on a day-to-day basis. Our team consists of one head bus driver, 6 bus drivers, regular bus drivers, and 2 substitutes. Without those 9 people doing what they do on a daily basis, we wouldn't be able to do what we do here every day. It is often under the radar. You typically hear about school bus drivers only in a negative light, not just here in Hamilton, but across the country, in the media, on social media. Frankly, they take a beating a lot of times. Not so much here, which we're very proud Just to give you a little idea of what our bus drivers are doing on a daily basis. We have 5 in-district AM and PM runs. We have 1 out-of-district run to transport students out of the district to special programs. A number of runs back and forth to New Life Christian School. Daily, afternoon, and morning runs to the BOCES campus in Verona for career and technical ed programs. We have 2 midday pre-K runs to get our little ones home. We have multiple late runs after school, after the normal PM runs that get our students home after school programming. Field trips, we're fortunate to be able to still offer field trips, and then countless athletic events. I'm happy to say it is my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of any cancellations or lost opportunities because of a lack of bus drivers or not being able to do things because of driver shortages so far this school year, which is phenomenal. Across the country, it's been well documented that there is a school bus driver shortage. It's something that affects us as well. We only have 2 substitutes. We'd love to have more. Despite only having 2 substitutes and despite having that shortage impacting us, these folks here, as well as Diane, who's not here, have made it so we haven't had to sacrifice anything. We talk every year, we stress with our drivers the importance of their job under normal circumstances. They're the first people to see kids in the morning. They're the last ones to see many of them, and oftentimes the last ones to see them before they go home. Which that in and of itself is so vital to the operation of the school district. The fact that they're doing what they're doing this year under the circumstances is phenomenal. So this is certainly a well-deserved honor. I'd like to call the folks that are here up. They certainly deserve individual recognition as well. You folks will be getting a certificate. I have a typo on some of them, so you're not going to get them tonight. My apologies for that. The date.
No, it's me. It's me. I'm sorry.
We are going to present you each with a certificate for our monthly nightlight. This certificate is awarded for recognitions for contributions to the Hamilton School District by the Board of Education tonight. So if you would please stand up and come up and join us. We're going to get a picture. Bill and Michelle are going to come join us as well. So Lorna Sipchik, our head bus driver. And then 5 of our 6 regular drivers are here tonight. Holly Hawk, Jackie Rose, Kenny Piziak, Frank Marzella, and Don Johnson. So if you folks could please come up.
Thank you.
Get a picture with.
All right, let's squeeze in a little bit.
Okay.
Then you can get us all here. You got this one.
It shows in your eyes.
I just want to move this chair out of the way. Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Frank, thank you.
Go home and get some rest.
Thank you.
You're back bright and early.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want us to start your car? We can move it over for you. That's right.
We'll move over there, make more sense.
You good?
I was going to say something about tough roads, but you can't bring that up around them. They don't want to hear about it. I'm lucky today.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well deserved.
All deserved.
Very much
They're
so.
wonderful. Moves us on to 6.0 and beyond. We've got some personnel appointments to do. I need a motion to approve the appointment of Marissa Fall as probationary part-time teacher aide bus aide.
I'll second.
And the discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the following advisors for the 2021-2022 spring musical, Seussical musical, with tentative dates of March 4th and 5th, as recommended by the superintendent and secondary principal.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I will abstain.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? I need a motion to add Vanessa, Steve, and Jacqueline to the sublist, as recommended by the administrative team and the superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I have it here. In my mask. Let's start with the DEI discussion before we move into the other policies.
Yeah, so I thought the policy committee discussed earlier, and we thought it was prudent and very important to have a discussion with the board on the direction we would like to go with DEI. You know, we feel it's important to have community input, student input, faculty and staff input. Would you like a public meeting, a special meeting, a public forum? How would you like to proceed? Travis and Corey, if you want to add anything along those lines?
Yeah, because just to be clear, we're required to have a DEI policy. We have some draft examples from policies, but that doesn't have to be our policy.
Okay.
They also have some other guidelines for what you could do with that policy.
And it would be kind of nice to have a general idea of what everybody on the board feels, but also have that community piece before we start making the policy, rather than to go back after the fact. As far as making the actual policy, we kind of feel that this would be helpful and kind of expedite, maybe that's not the right word, it'll make making the policy easier and it'll be a better policy.
It seems strange to have a committee of 4 people deciding the whole thing and then coming back and
Yeah.
forth.
Right. Right.
That's
What,
4 white men.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
in a room by
Yeah.
themselves.
Right.
So,
What is the best forum for public interaction? I guess is my question on that.
my thought was that we would do, we could have a workshop with some invited participants from the community, but it would also be open to the public, not necessarily for comment, but for a public meeting where people would come. But we would have some invited participants, and maybe we could put out an invitation for those who would be interested, but also maybe reaching out specifically to some people to make sure we have some participation. Bill suggested, for example, student representatives.
And the invited participants we have done before. We've done it last year with reopening, so that wouldn't be out of the ordinary, you know.
No, I think that
precedent's
framework.
already been set.
And part of the state required framework for DEI is to have a stakeholder group to move forward, you know, with an inclusivity committee. So this would be a good springboard to move in that direction.
If we think the workshop with invited guests and public participation would be the best forum, then
Invited speakers.
invited speakers, okay.
So,
Right, is that correct?
Well, I think it'd be a workshop, so they wouldn't necessarily be participants in that.
but is your thought that those participants would then be part of a future?
They could be, or they could not be. I think it just.
It's a place to start.
I think
It's a good signal.
Yeah.
I guess my other thought is there really should be space for a public hearing. If we really want to hear from people, if we really want to get that up front, having space for a public hearing, whether it's the same event or whether it's a different event, I think, because otherwise you're talking about invited folks, and then you're not
Right.
giving the people that you didn't invite the opportunity to speak, which then just sustains.
I think we're at the point where we don't know, are we just gonna go with the BOCES draft?
Right.
Are there other things missing from there? So this first thing for me is, let's just get some input. And maybe that goes back to the board, maybe it just goes back to the policy committee with some more guidelines that we have
Okay.
more structure, and then we can come up with a policy that could be
And then,
brought to a public.
and then bring that to a public hearing. Yeah, I mean, I think at some point there should be a public hearing, but I
I mean,
think
at
that's,
any
I
point
think
we-
that's reasonable.
Yeah,
right?
At any
So-
point, we'd have to adopt it at a board meeting, which
Right.
would be a public hearing, where
Sure.
people could,
Right.
participants could state their case.
Two board meetings, so there'd be
Two
the first and
boards,
the second
yeah.
reading.
Right.
Okay. And,
But it's something that we could maybe make a better effort to publicize.
well, exactly, when we put out the notice about the board meetings, we could state that,
And send an email, this is the policy that we'll be adopting.
right.
Yeah, and just to be clear, saying that it's 2 board meetings with public opportunity to comment isn't really right. I mean, we can always use more than 2 meetings to approve a policy, but the first public session to speak is after we do our consent agenda, which is where the policies get
So at least one.
confirmed. So,
Sure.
yeah, so just being thoughtful about the fact that saying we're creating a space for public comment, if we do it after we have already accepted the
But
policy,
we
doesn't.
could also put that as not in part of the consent agenda too,
Right.
to be conscious about.
So just being thoughtful about that, is if our intent is to use the board meeting as the public hearing, we need to make sure that we actually build it so that it is a space to be a public hearing.
I like the idea of having the 3 opportunities. So one, a workshop to get the proper information together so that the team can work to get a good draft for everybody to
Yeah,
look
we just want a
at.
general consensus
Yeah.
for how to proceed.
Okay.
Now, Bill, did you have any idea as far as timeframe? I mean, is January a realistic time for this?
Yeah, yeah, I think we need to move on this sooner than later.
Yeah.
I think it's,
We need to keep moving forward.
yeah, it's,
So the workshop would be in January. The first read would be in February.
Not necessarily.
I think from the workshop, we'll have to figure out what it's
Yeah.
Okay.
going to be. It could be a lot more work.
A lot
It could be
more, yeah.
pretty simple if we all like the BOCES plan,
Right.
but.
Okay, no, that makes sense. But we're not planning, January is not the timeframe to vote.
No,
January is the
no, no,
timeframe
no.
to start the process.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works for me.
So do we want to choose together a date in January for that? That works for our board?
Okay.
Bill, is there administrators you'd like present for this?
I would like the administrators involved, yes.
Administrative team.
Yep.
So I have double board meetings the week of the 10th. I prefer not the week of the 10th, but
That's fine with me.
so maybe look at the week of the 17th. And then maybe like Tuesday, I'm just throwing out dates, so stop me, but
For me, Wednesday or Thursday, probably. But not Monday.
I prefer.
Monday.
Monday's a holiday.
Monday's a holiday,
Yeah.
yeah.
I could do the 19th or the 20th.
I prefer the 20th,
What's that?
The
20th.
but I prefer the 20th. I
That's fine.
missed the game.
The 20th work for,
You're gonna.
I was gonna ask,
Right,
if there's any
December.
conflicts with any play?
January.
Who knows?
Is there any
January
school
20th.
event on the 20th?
Not as of right now, no.
20th of January?
yes.
Travis, not as,
Modified that.
yeah. That's not on, no.
Oh, no, I just have it.
What do you have, John?
That's on the
She
19th?
She said I asked if there was any school, and I
Oh.
just said a modified.
On the 20th.
It is not on the
On the
school
19th.
calendar.
On the 19th, so 20th there's none.
Okay.
I didn't know. How does that-
20th?
Yep.
What time?
Time, Travis? 6:30?
After 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock would be fine.
6 o'clock.
Does that work with everyone in the room?
Yes.
Special workshop meeting. Special meeting online. So I remember. And we'll do a calendar invite to. You're at. Great.
So just to be clear, this would be a workshop, which would mean a public meeting. Public is welcome to be here and listen, but generally, we have not had public comment sessions during workshops. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
But we would welcome any feedback after.
Afterwards,
Yeah, I was
so,
gonna
you know,
say that.
submitted to the BOE email or.
Will you stream the workshop?
We have not traditionally, but I think,
I'm fine with it.
yeah.
I think we should.
I think so too.
And even then, having it recorded would be good too.
Anytime it's streamed, it's recorded.
Yeah. Okay, yay.
Good.
That's a good thing to get going.
And maybe Bill we could share with the board and with anybody we invite the policy, or maybe even widely, the draft policy.
Yeah.
I guess if that's okay with policies, that we're shooting out the
We have
draft.
2 drafts to
Yeah.
choose from.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want.
Right.
Yeah, I'll share those.
Yeah. I think the big, for me, the question I would have for all of you that we're inviting is, what's missing from this? What else do we need to see here? And
Right.
is this something that's actually gonna make a change?
Right.
And the other thing that will be helpful is the, I don't know if mandate's the right word, but, you know, what is required?
Right.
So that we're hitting all of those, checking all those boxes as we go.
Okay.
And maybe beyond.
Right. Great. That brings us to first reading discussions on 2012, 2013, 2015, 2021, and 2022, 2041, and 2042. I feel like I just read out years, but they're policy numbers.
I would just like to once again thank you for providing the
Yeah.
Debbie, thank you for the one that shows what's been changed.
Okay,
It's
you're welcome.
so much easier.
She's gonna kill us next month,
There's a lot.
So, do you want a quick rundown of what's on here? Because it is a little
Yes, please.
confusing. We'll start from the top. 2012, number of board members in terms of term of office. There's just a few, there's nothing major changed there. Qualifications of a Board of Education member, no major changes.
I think, just to clarify for anybody who's listening, this is part of our just general review of policies.
Yeah.
We're not trying to change or.
Yeah, this is just going through, we've kind of, we're going through the policies that are like due for revision as far as the last time they were revised or reviewed.
Yeah. So mostly it's either outdated, unclear language, or
Yeah.
conflicts between these policies and other policies.
Yes. And most of these come from the Board of Operations section of our policy manual, which has been helpful because we're able to see the overlap from this policy to that policy.
Just, for those who don't know, Travis does a great job of looking at other board policies and getting a sense of where other districts are. So if you see a lot of, large text, a lot of it's just using other board policy as a good model for this.
Yeah.
And then anything that we're not sure of, Bill's running by legal to make sure that we don't have any,
Exactly.
we're not violating any laws or going against any just required.
And a lot of the changes are updates to education law that were not around when the original policy was there. 2015 expense reimbursement for board members, same thing, no major changes. I'm going to skip down to quorum. No major changes. Quorum pretty much doesn't change. There was a paragraph that was not needed in that policy that is actually in another policy, so that was removed. Parliamentary procedure, which is my favorite policy in the whole book. Minor changes and with the added stipulation that the district is in possession of that book.
You can guess who put that in. And we already are.
And we are in possession.
Yes, we are.
That was the first thing I asked him.
Yes, we are.
So, 2020, yeah, these do get confusing with years. 2021 and 2022 policy numbers, duties of the president of the Board of Education and duties of the vice president of education. What we're suggesting is to rescind both of those policies and replace them with one policy, which will be titled Powers and Duties of the Board of Education, which includes some new stuff that's in there, which is pretty normal across within our BOCES. And the duties of the president and the vice president of the board are in that policy, and there are no major changes to those duties from our original policy. Does that make sense?
They will have to be renumbered.
Yes. So 2021 and 2022, we would be asking to rescind, and we would be proposing a new policy, Powers and Duties of the Board of Education, which will get a new policy number Is that correct the way I worded that, Debbie?
Mhm.
So what would it be numbered?
I have to go into the
So we start
policy
with a
book
two.
to see.
Yeah, so it would be
It
20
would follow in
something.
there, so, I don't have the policy book. I can
No, that's
grab
fine.
it.
Yeah, it's-
But it'll be right in there if I can, if I don't have a
Okay,
2023, I can put it down as a 2023 or 2019, somewhere in there.
somewhere, yeah, okay.
So, under that new one, and I'm not reading all of the second, but the thing that caught my eye was preside at all meetings of the board, the duty of the president of the board. The word all catches me, like, I can't always be here, right? Like, there's times when I haven't been, and Jen there takes over, and so I don't know, it says in hers that
No.
she would be able to be there in the absence of me, but it doesn't say that I'm not allowed to be absent. And should I be? No, but things do come up, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So preside when present at all board.
that might be, yeah. It just
Sounds
allows.
weird, but yeah.
Yeah.
It just allows for the president to, be sick or
Right.
have a
Right,
family
right.
issue or
Preside at all
something.
meetings of the board unless absent or.
Yeah. So however you want to word that, just allow this person a little bit of.
Okay, well, we need to figure that out right now, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because this
so
is-
Corey,
this is the
you're
first
the
reading.
wordsmith.
I don't know, meetings of the board. I think unless absent.
Unless that. Right.
Yes. So 4A,
Or what about just preside at meetings of the board?
Take the all out.
Preside.
Yeah,
Take the all
if we
out.
take the all out.
okay, so we want to omit the word all from section 4A
Correct,
of this new policy we are proposing.
yeah.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay,
And I had,
that was like the first
Yeah,
thing
no,
that caught
good
my
catch.
eye.
and then I have another question back at 2013 that is a linguistic/definition question, I think.
On the suggested page,
Yep, on 2013, the suggested page, A, at least 18 years of age or older and not adjudged to be an incompetent. Do you need the word "an," or is it just?
That comes directly from education.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Which I'm not seeing at the bottom of this policy.
As opposed to adjudged to be incompetent. I don't know, it's perception.
It's on the one that is in current and first reading.
What is
The
it?
one you're looking at,
So what I'm looking at is the suggested changes.
yeah, but in the current and first reading, it is listed there.
In that language or the law?
No,
The
the
law.
law.
Oh, you're looking for
Yeah,
the
those
law.
laws need to be there. I remember, like, it's in.
Okay, if that's the language of the
it's
law,
the
then that's.
verbiage used in one of those sections of education law.
Okay.
well, then that's fair, because somebody else is reading.
I don't like it, but if it's the law.
Right, we don't have to like it. All right, well, thank you. Any other discussion on the policy? You guys are doing an excellent
Oh
job.
my gosh.
Oh,
Thanks.
Give-
It's
yeah,
like
the
my
credit-
dream come true.
the Credit mostly goes to
Nothing to
Travis,
do
he's
it.
doing the lion's
Yeah.
share of the work, and that's where the writing
Thank you.
tells.
I will say, I've learned a lot about grammar from Mr. Jarko.
Mr.
Oh,
Jarko.
yeah, you're in trouble with those two.
A lot of grammar we're correcting for somebody that never read besides you.
It's okay.
I love it.
There we all. all
So,
together now. Oh, sorry.
Debbie, we made one change on a policy. Do we need to do anything special? Or is that just
No,
noted? for the
because it's
second?
first reading, so I'll make those changes, so they'll be on the second.
Yeah.
And again, thank you, Debbie, for all.
Thank you, Debbie.
People, Debbie's got a lot of work in here, just getting all this stuff into the agenda. There's a lot going on, and thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
And that moves us to 6.4. Combined sports, I need a motion to approve Hamilton's participation in the following combined sports programs as recommended by the athletic director and superintendent, contingent upon following all COVID-19 protocols, ice hockey and wrestling.
I'll move.
Second?
Any discussion?
How many each?
Yes.
1 ice hockey player and 2 wrestlers.
Now, wrestling, they have to wear a mask because it's indoors?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work with wrestling to keep a mask on?
Good question.
Okay. Gotcha. I just was curious, like, I don't know how that works.
To the best of their ability, how's that?
They start off with a mask, I got you.
I once wrestled a whole wrestling tournament with a cut lip that I couldn't open my mouth or it'd bleed all over the place.
All right.
Yeah, so,
You can
give
give
it
them,
more knowing you're bleeding.
give them all your pointers.
Right, there you go. It was a dark mask.
And good luck to them.
Yes.
Luck.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to accept the monetary donation from the Episcopal Church with sincere appreciation and to increase the budget with that amount.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And was this for specifically, just as for initiatives and well-being?
Yeah, it was not. I don't know the specifics on how this money ended up coming forward, but we were actually, a representative from the church reached out to us that they could come into some funding. So we spoke at length about multiple student initiatives, like the backpack program, supporting the cafeteria for kids that can't afford lunches, winter wear for kids that don't have it through Betsy's office. So there's really no specific earmark cause that they want to support, but just in general, they want to support kids through the school. So
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you to them and those that helped out with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Administrators updates. We're gonna start with Kevin, because he's the only one that chose to move out.
I'm gonna stay right here too.
You can, that's fine.
It's just us.
Right.
Yeah.
Good log in.
And a camera.
Okay. Oh. I need these. Awfully blurry. Mine's gonna be short. Reason being is really kind of in my report that I'll give. You know, the administrative team, all of us really have spent a lot of time kind of helping out in different areas. You know, we've been short subs, we've been short our actual aides that we've had, and I've expressed this to you guys in the previous meetings. You know, with COVID and quarantines, it's been difficult, and you know, I'm just super grateful for everyone, especially all administrators. I mean, on a daily basis, they're covering classes. I think we all did a class this week, at least one, if not multiple. You know, aides and teachers being pulled to go do something else. Our subs in particular, you know, they'll come in the morning and be assigned to this teacher, but then we're short a couple people, so we've got to take the schedule and find breaks and move people around. You know, our subs, and Debbie Welsh would attest to this, like they deserve a great deal of thanks, and having to come in and I'm here, oh no, I'm not here, and I'm over here, and then I come see them at noon and say, oh, I gotta move you know, give them a new schedule, and they're over here. So it's been tough. So that, you know, that's partly why my brief update, because what tends to happen is you don't get to, like, you do the things you need to do from day to day because you have less time. You don't get a whole lot of time to work on the projects and the things that you really need to. So, you know, that's been tough. So that's the one thing that always gets pushed to the side of the desk because, well, we don't have to do that right now. You know, because we've got to get this class covered, that class covered. So I just want to thank the administrators and really all of the staff, subs included, for helping out like they have. The good news is, as you know, we did have an aide approved. That's one less sub that we'll need each day. So that's really good. We also had one of our bus drivers who's going to do some subbing for us too. Already approved because they're through here. We had a couple more aides that just missed. Looks like we just missed having them make the make the deadline here, so we've got a couple more subs in the works, so I see a light at the end of the tunnel, providing we don't have massive quarantines, and we all stay healthy. This should subside. And we did have a couple days this week where it wasn't crazy, so I think hopefully it's looking up from here. Yeah, just some basic things. The DESA was rolled out. Teachers are doing their rating scales of our students, so we should have data on that. Hopefully by the December meeting, I can report out on that. Our behavioral specialists, Debbie Staley and Daniel Bennett, and I kind of put this in the report. We locked them down to certain days, so we're able to put together routines for them, going in and doing some proactive work. So that's been great. They've been busy. I just want to also thank all of our counselors and our school psychologists have done an amazing job. And you guys hear in the news that there's a lot of stress in schools, and there is. We've got kids coming in that that really need behavioral plans and safety plans, and Heather on a daily basis is coming over to ask the aid or our behavioral specialists and our counselors and our school psychologists to help out with certain students. So they're doing a phenomenal job. So really just want to thank them as well. Give them a mini nightlight. My counselors and my special education teams, two separate teams, are beginning to update their web pages. So that's something that hopefully by December, January, when we have these half days to work on, they're updating that. So that should be all new. The last time we really got in there and updated those things, we were looking at 2017, so it's definitely due to go back in and work on those. So they've been working on those, putting in new descriptions, new forms, any curriculum that they're giving. So that's it.
Great. Questions for Kevin?
Kevin, Kevin is participating in virtual town halls with Ferrara
today
for updates to special ed laws. So anything that came out of today's meeting?
There was one interesting piece in there on when parents request an outside evaluation to be done, which I thought was interesting, which is happening more and more. We do our evaluations here with our school psychologists and our therapists. They do evaluations, but often we're being asked, and it's costly to pay for an outside evaluation. It's sort of a second opinion. These are costs that you can't really budget for. So if you have 10 of those, and the Board of Ed policy has a cap on that of 2,000, but you try to be reasonable and whatnot. But so there was an interesting thing, like we don't have to do those unless someone brings a dispute to one of our evaluations that we've done. We can just say no. If they just want a second opinion, or if they want, we can say no to that. So that's new. There's been a couple of court cases that cited on the side of the school districts that have said that we can say no. Now, if they're disputing a specific piece in an evaluation, then we're required to do so. But if it's just, I want to see if, this is going on, and they're not disputing something that we've done, then we kind of say no. So that was interesting, and a few other things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you.
I always leave you for last, so I think
Yeah,
tonight
this
I
is,
will, right?
caught me off guard.
Down to the podium.
Just a quick update, our state level reserves as part of the ARPA federal COVID relief funding is due November 30th. We have to submit, we went through this over the summer, we have to submit budgets now for each particular pot of money. So we have to submit separate budgets for the after school reserves, the summer programming reserves, and then the learning loss reserves. So we're working on that. The team's helping me out with the narrative pieces to that. And then lastly, just a little update on capital project phase 3. We expect to have full SED approval by the end of December. So timeline-wise, as far as all the administrative stuff is right on schedule, which puts us in a good position to bid out that project in early 2022. which in working with King & King and Construction Associates, they feel is the most beneficial time to bid that out for work coming up in the summer. Unfortunately, it's sort of a good news, bad news situation. If you recall for phase one, and this is something that's sort of late breaking, and the team is kind of hearing this for the first time, and they're going to be involved in this next week. If you remember in phase one, really unforeseen, things really happened. The timing of things for us was really beneficial. We bid that out in January of 2020 for work being done in the summer of 2020, pre-COVID. The bid numbers that we got were very favorable. We were able to get a lot of work done in phase one. Also, the fact that we were able to basically turn the building over to people in April, once we went remote, was hugely beneficial. We were able to get things done in the summer of 2020 early on before we really started to see labor shortages and supply chain issues. So we were able to get, because of favorable bidding, because of the building essentially being vacant, we were able to get a lot done in that phase one. Phase two, we've been doing primarily indoor door hardware, doors and hardware. So phase three, we just had a conference call last week, Bill and I late last week. We've sort of been warned that things probably won't be as favorable for phase three, and most likely the expanded scope of work in phase three will not be able to be done entirely in the summer of 2022 because of those issues that have spiked because of COVID, the supply chain issues, labor shortages, and a bigger scope of work. So we had favorable bidding in phase one in an effort to maximize our maximum allowable pupil aid units. We're getting more work done now in phase three, but going back to 2018, it's more work than we thought we'd be getting done in phase three in the summer of 2022. One of the things that we will be doing now, and these folks will be helping Bill and I on Monday, if there are any parts of the building scheduled to be worked on in phase three, if any of those things can be done while school's in session to sort of hone in on things that have to be done during the summer, that's going to help us. So as an example, and folks to start thinking about is, this is a complete hypothetical, but could we give up the locker rooms once winter sports are over to allow work to start before school's over? I don't know. That's the question. Does phys ed need to have locker rooms for us to finish the year? If the answer is yes, we can give up that part of the building before school's out, that's going to help us. So really the 4 areas that are going to be targeted, if any of those areas can be given up per se, while school's in session, it's going to really help expedite how quickly that work gets done. Once we have those conversations internally, I mean, ultimately our number one priority is not to really interrupt significantly any of the instructional processes here in the building. So once that is known, we can share that information with King & King and Construction Associates. Once we get through the bidding process and once a timeline becomes a little more clear, we will have Paul Johnston from King & King back, probably in January or February board meeting, for an update on what we're looking at potentially spring of 2022 through what's likely going to be the summer of 2023 when everything gets done. So he can speak more to challenges. If you have questions, certainly Bill and I can do our best to answer them. But basically the gist of what we got is the earlier they can get in and start things, the better. But also the process of sort of mobilizing and setting up, the more times they have to do that, the more costly it gets. So we certainly don't want them to come in the summer, start an area, leave for 9 months, and then have to come back. That's not something that's practical. So no, again, good news, bad news. We were able to get we were very fortunate with phase one. So fortunate that we can do more in phase three, but with the current circumstances, it's just not as favorable as initially anticipated. So it's your homework, guys, to start thinking about for Monday. And then, even looking with regard to capital improvements, we've already started to have conversations with King and King, and I will be having conversations with fiscal advisors beyond phase three to keep going and getting into a more consistent cycle of really looking at expiring debt and trying to time things up as far as referendums and getting get rid of the volatility of debt service so we can continue to do capital improvements moving forward. So, any questions on that?
Yeah. So for phase three, it's likely that the supplies and services will cost more too. Is there a fear that everything that we'd hoped to get done in phase three won't be able to get done budget-wise, or no?
No, I don't think so. When the project was initially planned, this is going back to 2017, 2018, they built in pretty heavy contingencies, and they factor in for pretty significantly an incidental budget, and then also they're very conservative with their inflation and their contingency numbers moving forward. I want to say it's like 20% leeway each way on each of those, on incidentals and on.
I almost think it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's
So-
almost like 1.5 times.
I just know
what you
that
expect.
with manufacturing, it's getting crazy.
Yeah, so even with bidding it in early, as far as ideal timing on in the calendar year, which is what they're telling us, we're still going to be faced with the challenge.
So the fear is more the timing, not so much the scope of the work.
Yes. Yep. Yep. It's just not going to be able. What they're seeing in other projects, and there's still labor shortages, and I know that school districts that had active projects going on this past summer of 2021, had a really hard time. So we really,
Yeah, like you said, we're fortunate.
we were very fortunate to get done what we did in 2020.
Construction Associates, our project manager, we've already started these discussions, will have a more active role, if you will,
In phase three.
in
what they
phase
did in
three,
phase one.
as we navigate the shortages, the scheduling. We're going to have to be much more strategic because of all these
Yeah,
issues. Yeah.
It's a puzzle.
Yeah.
What about an update on phase two? Supplies,
Yeah, I think there's a couple more doors that we're just waiting for.
and then the entry to the middle high school office, that is getting redone eventually, right?
Phase three.
That's phase three?
Yeah.
Phase three, that's part of phase three.
I thought that was part of phase two.
No, the phase two is just, existing interior doors,
Okay.
doors and hardware.
Now, you talked about moving forward. I think I've talked about this before. I forget the actual name of them. I've always heard them called as $100,000 projects. Our aid isn't beneficial for us to pursue that.
Correct. There's, SED allows for up to $100,000 annually for capital outlay projects. The problem for us, compared to other local districts, is our aid ratio is lower. So with these capital outlay projects, you still have to go through a similar process to what you do with these bigger capital projects. So you have to incur all those soft costs, architect fees, you have to go through the SED approval process. So really, in consulting with King and King, it's more beneficial for us to continue to do bigger projects and kind of level out the debt load. The bang for the buck is just really not there. So, for us to do, I don't know, I don't want to even estimate a percentage, but basically, even for $100,000, which sounds like a lot, when you get into just exactly what you're going to get for that, and then taxing on all the soft costs on it, it's just not worthwhile.
There has been discussion at the state level to increase those capital outlays,
The allowable amount.
the allowable amount,
Yep.
because of this scenario.
Yeah.
It would allow districts who have a lower age ratio to be able to do projects and it be beneficial. Where that will go, we don't know.
What is that, what's the process for that? That's in the, that would be a legislative action?
I think it would be
Or
a
state
state
act.
finance with approval from the legislators. But I don't know, Matt, I don't know if you've heard anything from your
I don't.
business
I mean,
officials
it's,
group.
that's something, you hear about unfunded mandates, you hear
Yeah.
about the, the BOCE salary cap, there's a whole litany of things that get brought up every year. And
Well, if you or Jen know who we could advocate to, that'd be nice.
Yes.
Send some letters.
But I think we'll be,
And that was a capital outlay project, right?
Right,
So
yes.
what we want to do is advocate to increase the allowable amount for capital overlay projects.
yeah, because what ultimately for someone like us is the soft costs and the incidental fees, like, for example, paying the architect for a $250,000 project versus $100,000 is going to be negligible, so we're just going to get more bang for the buck and get more. So, but if you have districts that are 96% building aid ratio,
Yeah, it makes
or
total sense.
76%, it's a different playing field. So, yeah. So we will also be in 2022 calendar year. Actually works out well for us timing wise, and we are required to undergo the process of a building condition survey, which will be a rotating cycle for all districts in New York State, and that's used for state ed planning for capital projects. And so the fact that we already have King and King here working on an active project, that's something we'll incorporate, and that information will be used for further projections and what needs to be done. So it'll all be done kind of concurrently with phase 3, so they'll look at the BCS from 2015, updated with what work's been done, and then we'll have a better idea what we need moving forward.
I've got 2 more questions for Matt, unless you
Sure.
had more to go.
Nope.
I'll give you the easy one. It's been a very wet year, a humid summer. So that being said, 2 things. How is our new roof holding up? And have we encountered any significant mold or mildew problems in any of our facilities?
Very well with the roof. It was certainly, you're really happy that we got that done when we did. So we've knock on wood, we haven't had any problems. These guys can attest, you haven't seen anybody running around with garbage pails on wheels, and so we've been. Randy and his crew have been diligent, and we do get leads and making sure everything's good. So knock on wood, that's been good. And then as far as mold, mildew, knock on wood.
All right, so the big one. I wrote it down so I didn't screw it up. The village is predicting that the natural gas and electricity costs will rise up to 50% this winter as compared to last. Additionally, gasoline and diesel fuel prices are rising, food prices, supplies and services, everything is rising or is expected to be rising in cost. We work off a budget, and I expect we weren't quite anticipating the extent to which prices would rise. So my question is, what is the impact on rising prices on this budget year, and how might it affect the budget planning for next year?
I'll tackle the first part of that first, just focusing on this year. When you have a $14 million budget, any year, you will have, in most cases, you'll have a whole list of things that end up costing more than you originally planned. And typically, on the other side of the ledger, you're going to have things where you have savings. That's sort of an ongoing, examination. The cost of, let's say in this case, natural gas for heating, with that increase, regardless of whether there's going to be a cost, that's a very volatile budget item for us, simply based on temperature. And that's something we don't have a ton of sample data for natural gas, but back when we would buy fuel oil, we would see huge ranges in fluctuations just based on temperature. If cold days happen to fall on weekends, there's a significant difference in what the expense will be. So with that said, we budget very conservatively for heating and those types of things have been very volatile. Even with an increase of up to 50%, even that probably wouldn't be enough to really tip the scale either way in the grand scheme of things. So that's number one. Looking ahead to next year, we really haven't started to look yet. We've had little things starting to come in, looking ahead to next year, but yeah, it's certainly something that is going to affect the budget planning for next year. And it's going to be a lot of the same things that we've been accustomed to seeing the major cost drivers in the last couple of years. So when we meet with all of the departments, there are certain things within each budget, within each department that are going to be on our radar and that we're going to talk about. So yeah, just the cost of doing business continues to go up, and this year there's even more unique circumstances that we expect to see. And we'll see it with things that we purchase directly from vendors. We'll see it in BOE services. We'll see it in, just as another example, I'm in the process now of engaging in putting out a request for bids for diesel fuel for the 22-23 school year. So, I mean, think of it from the vendor's perspective. We're guaranteeing the quantity of diesel fuel for our buses. But these vendors are bidding on a fixed quantity from July 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 23. But we have to do that now because of our budget timeline. And I mean, I don't know how they do it. I mean, how would you as a vendor bid on a commodity like diesel fuel for basically 6 to 18 months into the future? So it's really hard. It is really hard. And typically what I've always done and what I feel has been desired here is, if we can lock in at a price, we do it. We're not here to play futures and let's
Good enough.
let's let it ride and hope to pick the fluctuating price and hope it goes down. If it's a known amount, we can work with it. So, but yeah, it'll definitely be. We're going to see it this year for sure.
That was all very helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
I have one thing. Was there any update on the speed radar?
Yes, I did talk to the police chief, and it is something that they meaning the village, is interested in. And I shared very strongly that we were interested as well in two of them, one in each direction on West Kendrick Ave, and even said that we would be interested in sharing the cost for those, providing funding for that, if that's what it meant to get them on West Kendrick Ave. So that was shortly thereafter the October board meeting. I have not heard anything back since. So yeah, we would certainly welcome having one of those in each direction on Kendrick Ave.
Great.
So,
Thanks.
Yeah,
Great.
sure.
Thanks for bringing that up too.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
The life of the technology director at this time of year is busy but kind of dry. So I'll do my best to sum it up for you. I'm doing a lot of work with data at the moment, which is part of my role. A lot of things are due for the state right about now. We're working on things like beds. The state just required that we put out a new survey, which all of you got today. This digital equity survey. This is kind of a follow-up to the digital equity survey that they put out the last year or the year. But now this data we have to actually enter this in our student management system. Before it was just sort of anecdotal data that they were collecting, but now it's an accountability point. So we're going to take that data that you get from the survey I just put out today and enter that into School Tool. I've been assured by the School Tool people that they're going to make this process a little bit easier in the future. And we'll be able to do it directly through Parent Portal. But this year we're going to probably have to hand enter it. Anyway, it's going to be something we have to do every year. Survey the parents about digital equity. So that's going to be something new that's coming on. Also, the tech plan is due this year. The last tech plan we submitted was in 2018. So the next one, which is going to be a 3-year plan, will be due in the spring. Already begun the groundwork with my technology committee to work on our goals for the upcoming 3 years. Just to mention, we attended a pretty interesting legal seminar, the administrative team, about social media, new laws that apply to social media. Some actually very new laws that have changed some of the famous laws that we all learned about in educational law. We got our administrative degrees. Some things are changing in terms of the nexus between what happens outside of school and what happens inside of school, and how we can react to those things. So that was an interesting seminar. We recently purchased 20 drones to expand student exposure and experience with these drones. We've got a number of teachers now who are interested in exposing kids to drones, teaching them how to program drones. Monica Chamberlain in 6th grade has had a battery of presenters who are professionals working with drones, from everyone from scientists to agricultural specialists have come in and done presentations. The kids seem to be really eating it up.
Was this a continuation of the after-school program that we ran, we got the grant for?
Yeah, so in a way it is. So of course, Johanna Bossert is still working with drones. She's added it as a section to her middle school technology course. So students in that course are still engaging with drones in quite a significant way. Those were getting a bit long in the tooth, and they were no longer supported by manufacturers, so we had to go out and get something different. In terms of 6th grade, though, she was just sort of needing a jolt, wanting to do, her kids were expressing an interest in project-based, inquiry-based learning, and she wanted to sort of hit them where they were at. So, and it's been really, really neat. Not only have I gotten to meet a lot of local professionals who were doing a lot of interesting and different things using this technology, but now the kids get to sort of take those exciting elements and do something sort of pedestrian that we do all the time, write about them or present their findings and make arguments about them. So it's been a really, really interesting project. That's sort of it, in addition to the report that I handed it to you guys. You guys have questions for me?
I want to ask about Let's Talk.
Sure.
The last time I checked in, I remember you saying it wasn't getting us a lot of feedback. Is that still the case?
It still is very much the case, but we did sign a 2-year contract with them. So, we probably, based on the amount of use it's getting, I'm not sure that we're going to renew it.
Right.
I think, the longer I'm in the position, the more I sort of learn about the community. And this is the sort of community, and one of the aspects I really like about it, where they're more likely to stop and talk to me or send me an email personally.
Right.
I get tons of email from parents all the time about, can you help me with this, can you help me with that?
Right.
It's just that it's sort of the way we roll here, and I kind of like that. So we don't get a lot of traffic through Let's Talk.
And that was purchased in part to fulfill a goal of last year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it was worth a try.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, I also want to say, you said you were having a dry moment right now, but you also mentioned you were with the 3rd grade students, which I think a couple of us here would say are anything but dry.
I love to work with the teachers, so anytime that they ask me to come in and push in and work with the kids, I'll drop whatever else is on their calendar to do that. So yeah, I did get a chance to work with 3rd graders. I also worked with the 4th graders, both very exciting groups of kids. And it's pretty astonishing what they already know. Like, I'll go in with a plan about what I'm gonna go over with them that day, and as soon as I start teaching them, I know I'll have to throw the beginning half of it out because I'm like, they're already here at this point. So let me teach them something new. But yeah, it's really great.
Sorry to go back to this, but with the communication, the other software that was purchased, the Clever,
Yes.
missing an E, which is not very clever.
No.
So this seems like this is more based on internal communications, right?
Well, these forms, and I've spent quite a bit of time before the purchase of this of this software is looking at how many paper forms we still use, and it's just pretty astonishing. But so these would be forms for everything really. So they would be student-facing forms, faculty-facing forms, and parent-facing forms. Just as an example, the one that I always use, because this is the one that seems to be the bane of the elementary school's existence, are those teeny tiny little triplicate forms, like if there's a change in a transportation request, and one has to get routed to Lorna, and one has to get routed to the teacher, and one has to get routed to the attendance office, and one has to go to the elementary office, and it's a nightmare. So this digitizes that whole process. It starts a routing sequence that the parents fill out the form through our online portal, and then it goes to all the people that it needs to go to at once.
Yeah. So my question with this is, well, there's two questions. First, the thinking about the digital equity that we're thinking about, making sure that we would still have paper forms for those parents, those families that don't have internet access. And then the second part of it would be, what's the process for vetting these types of software? Do you have a technology committee that you can look at these with?
I do. I do have a technology committee that I look at them with. I also look and see what other schools are employing them, and I look at whether or not they're supported by BOCES, those sorts of things. A lot of the vetting falls on me, so if there's a screw up, then it's on me. But I have been looking for a program like this for quite some time. So I looked at a number of programs that do this sort of thing. I even tried to do some of it myself using Google Forms and some plugins, which was very hard to do. But yeah, that's sort of the vetting process.
Good. And then this is my last question.
Sure.
You may not know anything on this, but just speaking again about digital equity, the infrastructure bill that just passed seems to have money for rural internet, broadband services. Do you know anything about if that's going to really take hold in our community, if that's going to help us a lot?
I haven't heard anything specifically, but I'll follow up. I'm hopeful that it will, and I know that last year there were significant improvements to the broadband access here in our community. I felt that acutely here. So I'm hoping that continues. I think that the other barrier besides just connectivity is price. So I'm hoping that with more access comes more affordable access for people. I think that'll be the next big step.
Yeah, because I think one thing we have is we have data. We know all the homeless students that needed internet service. So maybe if you keep that, so if we do need to get to some advocacy part, make sure that gets put in the right places.
And that is something that's talked about every month when we're talking about this.
And so it's not where does it need to go? We know, we have the data. So.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get good data out of this digital equity survey.
Thanks.
Sure.
And we have Spectrum on my road now. That's really
good.
exciting.
That's what I mean.
It's fiber optic. It's not. It still has its.
Now you can be just as frustrated as the rest of us.
Wait till you call the customer.
Pretty amazing.
They did change their name from Time Warner.
Are we all set with Chris?
I have questions for Chris.
Sure.
I apologize in advance. I'll touch on something you said, the social media laws that are new. So maybe this would be a Bill question, but I know that we have some policies, some board policies that pertain to those things. Do we know yet if our policies that pertain to these law changes, do we need to revise our policies, or are there new policy formats like BOCES or NISBA that we need to look into to reflect these changes in law?
I don't know yet. So these were case studies that, for instance, Tinker is one that we know.
That's the
big one. So there's new case studies based on law that how we can act or not act on social media posts, social media activity.
Okay.
If it is a clear, substantial disruption to the educational process, then we have a nexus to act.
I
So-
misspoke. Bill's correct. It's not a new law.
It's
It's being interpreted
Yes.
in a more
Yeah.
restrictive way than in the past.
It's based on core ruling.
Yes,
Correct.
that's what
Yes.
it means.
Yep.
I understand.
Yep.
So probably the answer to my question is no, but I'm sure there are policies out there, so
Yes.
that's another subject.
Yep.
I don't see on the website the current board goals, or maybe even the district goals. Is that something we can get on there, or are we not?
Sure,
that
yeah, that's an
far?
oversight if they're not there.
I could be wrong, but when I was looking
Board of Ed.
on the Board of Ed, I didn't see them,
Okay.
Yes.
unless they're in a different
Oh,
spot.
2020.
Yeah, we're 2021, 2022.
And also
You're
on there,
welcome.
there's superintendent goals way back from like 2017. I don't know if that just needs to get out of there. That's not my department, but if we can get the board goals specifically on there, that'd be great.
Okay.
This question's gonna kind of go along with what I just asked Matt. So with supply chain problems being a reality, are there any devices that are scheduled to be replaced in the somewhat near future that should be budgeted for or ordered sooner so that we don't find ourselves in a predicament worse than we were in last year with the Chromebook? I guess what I'm asking is, should we be proactive with such a scenario?
Yes, I'm in pretty close contact with all of the vendors that I use. And in terms of technology, the supply chain is actually loosening some. We were actually just able to order a number of replacement Chromebooks, and they were in stock, which was new.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm in contact with them, and I think we're going to be okay
Okay.
in terms of making sure that we keep with the plan.
Yeah. Sounds good, Chris, thank you.
Are
Sure.
we making sure we're getting extra cords? I know it's a thing, but I'm just gonna say.
Yes, we are ordering lots of cords. The cord, I mean, I'm sure you could ask Morgan. The cords are an
Cords
issue.
are a thing.
Yeah, they are.
Thank
But
you
yes,
so much.
we are keeping the supplies up. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Heather?
Alrighty, so I'll just touch on some of the different pieces from the report for November. The first thing that the counseling department and I met with was just talking a little bit about how to add into our elementary plans for students to build their thinking around their personal interests and how it relates to the world of work. So we have placed an order for some materials that we can use in elementary, starting in kindergarten, up through 5th grade. So I'm really excited about that. Additionally, during our superintendent's days, elementary teachers created initial drafts of the curriculum maps, and that's an example of one of them. So I think that one is ELA. They've also created a continuum. We have math done, science, social studies. PE did one. Music has one in the works, I think, as well. So you can see, it's broken down into the different areas, and then you see how that relates basically pre-K through 5th grade. For math, it's a little bit different because it's based off of units. So we just set it up just a tiny bit different. So all of the information, for the most part, that we want to put on the web is done. And then Chris is going to turn it into an infographic, the word I cannot remember at all. So just to make it a little bit more user-friendly to be put on the website. But we have the teachers did a great job with that, jumped right in and completed that during our days. Additionally, we had Dr. Lavelle Brown come to our school, and following the workshop, elementary teachers met in departmental groups to talk about ways that we could apply some of the information he shared with us here at HCS. So those are really great discussion opportunities. And additionally, we're going to be having 2 teachers at the beginning of December. We'll be attending the Equity Institute offered by the Reading and Writing Institute, which is really exciting because we use reading and writing workshop models. So it's just going to be, it's something that the curriculum we're really familiar with, and then to kind of layer that lens of equity on it is going to be really interesting. So that will, I asked them to share out with me, what they learned during these 2 days, so I'm excited about that. We, based off of a steering team discussion, the Colgate athletic collaboration happened, so that's really nice. And now, as you know, Colgate's wrapping up their semester, so it'll have to wait a little bit as they're wrapping up in a week. I think it's a week. But we had a group of Colgate athletes come to our elementary recess and engage with students, and that was, they also, before they came, the physical education department met with them to talk a little bit about how to best support students during recess. We have been, over the fall, offered a number of extracurricular activities, and then they're going to be wrapping up at the end of mid-December before the break. But those have included art club, kickball club, math club, Liberty Kids. That'll start back up again in the spring for the second session. Ukulele club, there'll be a part 2 of that one as well. Elementary Student Council, the play just happened last night, which was a huge success, and I'm going to give a huge shout out to Allison Farrar and Sarah Zogby and all of the middle and high school students that helped assist during the play. It really was amazing. And we also have a novel writing club that's going on with a local author right now, so that's been really neat to see. So some, different types of clubs.
What grades are the novel writing clubs?
3 through 6.
I also want to.
Oh, 4 through 6 maybe. I'm sorry, Cory.
Okay, good, because I was going to say.
No, I don't think it's 3. I think we bumped it. We included 6, so sorry.
Next year.
I want to say the elementary play was fantastic. The teachers did a great job. All the older students did fantastic. The actors were phenomenal. And I just want to say publicly that I do hope that people that come to different school events respect the actors, the participants in music and things of that sort. There was a lot of talking in the auditorium last night, and it was really disheartening to see our community acting the way they did. So I do hope that by me saying this, that maybe it gets around a little bit, that the people that spend the time to be on that stage deserve the respect that we give our community for other things. I know it was a young crowd because it's elementary families, but I was sad for some of the students. There were some technical issues which happened, and so some of them were hard to hear. But then I felt bad because it was hard to hear because of the ambient noise, let's say, in the auditorium. The students and the teachers should be very proud of themselves, and I hope that in the future our community can show their pride by the way that they act in the auditorium. So, sorry, but I needed to have a soapbox, and that was my moment.
Well said.
Any questions for Heather now that I went on my soapbox?
How, now that this year, obviously we have restrictions, but your students are in school 5 days a week, how significant has that been for learning and just social, emotional, how helpful has that been?
Very helpful. So I think, we've been able to establish, we had really 3 different models last year, so it was just constant shifting. And so at this point in time, having the first quarter, it's just ended, 5 days a week, just regular routines are so important. They're important for adults, but extra important for our young learners. So I think that it's been just, very impactful for them. Definitely it's taken a little bit longer to get used to some of those routines. Some of the social emotional needs of the students are higher this year, I think, just from having all students here in school 5 days a week, and we're working through those. So you heard Kevin mention just the work that we've been able to do this year with the behavior specialists, I think has been really helpful. And it's definitely kept us on our toes, in those ways. But our students are really learning, growing, and it's really exciting. So it was kind of funny, one of our veteran teachers would always say, 6 weeks it gels, your classroom community comes together. And it's been a little longer, but one by one, teachers have come to me and said, oh, it finally happened, it's happening, come see. So it's really exciting, even if it took us a little longer this year just because of the delay and what students have gone through in the last year and a half. But I really feel at this point in time that, we have really gelled as a community. There's still things that we're working out and problems to solve, but definitely, we couldn't have done it if we hadn't been here in that 5-day routine. So I'm glad that we were able to jump back in when we did.
And you had a high turnover in staff in last year, so you have a lot of new employees, and that's a hard thing to juggle, I'm sure, but are you pretty happy with where we're at?
I am very happy, extremely happy, and I really would love to, thank you for asking that question so that I can respond that way. Our new staff members, and we have had a lot of new staff members, have just jumped in, as well as our veteran staff members who have been amazing. One of the things that will be on next month's board report, but I can talk to it a little bit now, is just we've had an opportunity over the last few weeks to have the teachers get into each other's rooms and observe. So we've been really focusing on reading. I've been doing observations and in the classrooms a lot of the literacy lessons, but I think even, as important as that is for me to give feedback, it's great to get feedback from colleagues. So I will go into one classroom and send that teacher to another classroom to observe, and then they have these great peer-to-peer conversations. So what you learn from watching a classroom in an hour is just, I think it's so important and valuable. And I remember sometimes when I would have a chance to go to neighboring districts to watch other reading teachers, and I came back with so many tricks and tips and, just to me, the best professional development. So I'm really happy about doing that. We've been doing that this week. Chris and Kevin and I have kind of all been pitching in and covering classes, and also the classroom teachers just kind of a little all over the board. So happy. They worked really, really hard. I think that they're tired, from just everything being so new, but they've done a great job. So, yeah.
Great to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Last but not least.
Say last but least.
Last but not least. I meant to say last.
How's everyone? I like a little bit of what Hez was talking about and what Travis had asked, the question about having the kids here 5 days a week. Obviously, it's great to have everyone in the school, and creating that gel, like Heather was talking about, has taken a little longer, even in the secondary as well. In the SPAC meetings, talking with other principals that have been principals for 20-some years, they're reporting out that everywhere this year is something that they haven't seen before. So they're adjusting and they're working through it. So I feel very fortunate to have the people around us and the adults in this building that are helping the students out in the ways that they are. And Hamilton's always been great for me personally, as a parent and with kids in the district. Just the relationships that the adults and the students have, and the ability to sit down and just have that quick conversation with a student if they're having a bad day. So yes, it's been interesting. Some of the things that have come up, we've just spending a lot of time helping those students readjust to 5 days a week. And overall, though, I think the kids are doing great. I do have to give credit to our counselors in the secondary as well. I'm sure in elementary, their workload has increased. They're having a lot of conversations, but they've been great in helping out. Let's see. So parent-teacher conferences for the secondary are next Monday in the afternoon. So we've been working on the schedule and getting the invites and calling all the parents and letting them know what time and everything. So we're all set for that. Report cards will be coming out tomorrow. So from there, we can pull that data and start working on some AAS services if those are needed, or finding out different ways to help students that may be struggling, but then also celebrate a lot of the successes that students are going to be having as well. Because I've seen some preliminary data and things look good. The secondary as well, in the 2 half days, we're working on preparing new documents. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to
a lot of the other stuff that I have to talk about besides the course progression document that I'm going to show you deals with clubs and activities. Do you want me to do that now or do you want me to do that later? Because it's in the agenda for later.
Yeah.
Okay. So clubs have been going, and I think that, you know, that's really important for the students to have this as well, because it's going to help them with their readjustment. So Mr. Alsop has been working on generating interest in creating a new club. It's the Hamilton Climate Society. So he's been talking with students, trying to get something together and judge interest on that. He hopes to have some students attend a virtual climate summit at the end of the month. So he's been working hard at that. So it's not an official club yet, but he's working on developing that club. Model UN, which you guys approved last month, Amy made a transition there. Late start, but she says there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy with the students. So they hope to attend the CNY MUN, which is a virtual conference. And then they're hoping to possibly attend another conference, which is at Cornell, and that one's going to be a hybrid model. Classes, so they're looking at various ways to make money. So all the classes have their officers and everything, so they're getting together and finding out ways to generate revenue for their classes and navigate COVID in doing so. You know, bake sales used to be a huge thing that they would try to do all the time. You know, they really can't do that. So they're trying to come up with different ideas to raise some money. So the junior class is working on having a middle school dance. Senior class has worked at some Colgate events, and they were able to raise some generous funds from doing that, and so they're very happy with that. And they're looking to work there as much as they can, and planning for, you know, possibly their senior trip. National Junior Honor Society and National Honor Society both have their induction ceremonies. National Junior Honor Society inducted 22 new members, and then National Honor Society inducted 14 new members. And thank you to Dr. Duclos and Mr. Alsop for saying a few words to our new members during the ceremonies. Both groups have started volunteering in various ways, and the club projects that could be starting soon with a hygiene drive, and all of those get donated to the Hamilton Food Cupboard. Esports, they shared a recruitment video. I wish I had that to show you. That was kind of interesting. So it was the students playing video games, so they're running around and everything's flashing all over the place. I have no idea what they're doing. It's just a sensory overload of information that they're looking at here. But it's their avatar running through, and they named them and showed them playing. So it's a bit of a recruitment video that they're trying to get some more members. But they have been practicing, and they're preparing for the winter season. Ski Club, I had mentioned that they lost their mountain. They decided on Labrador. They have 38 students registered, and through their own funds and with the help of the HTA, they were able to grant 3 full scholarships to students as well. So they're excited about that. They hope to be starting after the holiday season. Jazz Band has had rehearsals Mondays and Wednesdays to prepare for upcoming concerts. And Middle School Council has selected officers planning a Spirit Week, so Middle School Spirit Week that they hope to have. I'm thinking in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, winter break. High School Student Council planning a cell phone drive. So cell phones for soldiers is a drive that the nonprofit that provides cost-free communication services for veterans and active members as well. Tech Club is giving our Monday and Friday morning announcements, so they stream every Monday and Friday. Monday is middle school students streaming. Friday would be high school students. And I think I mentioned this last board meeting, but I'll mention it again because I see more and more students on the other side of the computer running the technology piece of it, so I think that's great. They created a newsreel. The high school created a newsreel for fall sports season, so they were able to show that to the students. They're working on their BBB videos, Better Business Bureau videos. And then both the middle school and high school groups plan to help out with the theater productions and the winter concerts. Mathletics, they have 24 students participating, so that's 24 students wake up Saturday morning and come into school to do math. Okay.
Well done, Mrs. Lynn.
Yes. So in September, they were first, October, they ended up in fourth, November 3rd. Overall, right now they're tied for first place with New Hartford.
Good job.
Maskers, congratulations to everybody who was involved in Baskerville. They did a great job. There's a lot of people coming together to make those productions happen, as Heather was talking about. And there's not much rest in that realm either, because they're right off into the next piece. So they had, I know they were having a workshop tonight, getting ready for the spring musical. And then the middle school production is going to be shown the first week of December. So there's a lot going on there. And a lot of kids working really hard and spending a lot of time, you know, with each other and coming together and putting something together that they're always proud of. And they do a great job.
Yeah.
FFA has had various fundraisers. They had 8 members attend the National FFA Convention, and currently they're working on organizing the Thank a Farmer baskets that will be delivered in December. I think I gathered everything.
Great.
And then the curriculum document. Might take a second. Does anybody have any questions? Hook this up. Try to hook it up.
Questions for Mark?
I do, but they're gonna take longer than that.
I have a quick one, Mark.
Yeah.
With the esports club and trying to recruit, is there a possibility that that could open up to middle school?
It's not already?
No, he was told that when, like, I know we were communicating that they weren't, middle school wasn't going to be involved.
Oh, I thought he told me he was going to do middle school.
I can talk to Mr.
Yeah.
Alvin and see what.
That would be appreciated.
cool.
I know there's a group that are pretty interested, ready to like kick some butt, so.
Now, while you are doing that though, Mark, on the report that we have here, the link doesn't work, and I believe, Bill, on your reports too. Are they supposed to work for us, or
Yeah.
are they just not clicking them right?
Well, there's
You-
PDFs.
You probably would have to,
It's a PDF, so
you
it's
probably have
here.
to copy it and put it in the URL.
Browser, but I don't think it's.
You can't even copy it because it's a PDF.
I was able to when I downloaded it and like opened it into Adobe. It was like a multi-step process.
We'll make sure you
We'll
have.
figure out how to do it.
Well, I had a link last report. Did those work?
No,
Oh, they didn't work either.
I don't think so. Don't call me.
You have to download it and then copy it from the.
Yeah, we have to
We'll see.
paste the URL or
A
something.
more efficient way.
Yeah, you have to remember I'm Bloomberg.
Because everything gets into a PDF.
PDF,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wouldn't,
The
it
board
wouldn't
docs.
work good, yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is if you want to show us a link, I would expect the link to work, and I don't mean that in a bad
It would
way.
have to be a link that would be in the board docs itself.
We can insert,
Copy and paste there.
we've done it before. We can put live links in PDF docs. I'll help Debbie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the goal of this would be to help, you know, a space for both students and parents to go to be able to get an idea of course progression. So Bill had shared a document with me a while ago that showed how some schools set up their course progression. So the vision is to have this just be a link on the web page, and you would go there. This would be your first stop, and all this is the slides presentation with links in it. So I've already received some feedback from secondary steering. I shared this with them as well, and so some people are looking at this and providing feedback on how we can change it or what information is important to have on here. And so one of the pieces of feedback is this first slide might have a little too much, so maybe we'll break it up into 2 slides, but we'll take that feedback and go from there. One thing I do think I will add is a feedback spot right here, an option with a survey maybe, that people that go to the webpage will be able to go onto it, look at it, and then there'll be a series of questions. Was this helpful? Was it not helpful? How was it not helpful? Something like that to collect some more feedback. But simply, it's just, so if you want to figure out what the course progression for social studies, it will show each grade, and each of the highlighted items is a link that the teachers just uploaded their information about their course. So 8th grade social studies, if you click on it, you'll be able to go to the document that the teacher uploaded that gives a description of the course.
so that's the information that's pretty much on every slide. So if you wanted a Regents progression, a Regents with advanced placement courses progression, some of the electives are listed, and then a little note in the bottom telling, in order to graduate, you have to take these classes and the Regents exams associated with them.
Mark, is there a standard format that's being used when the teachers are uploading? So if you click on those to see, their course description?
No,
Is there
no. A lot of them are documents that they had previously that they would hand out during open house and things like that. They modified to put onto here. So once we receive more feedback on exactly what parents are looking for, then we can maybe kind of standardize it a little bit more.
Great.
The original concept maps that we have, I know that, like the biology one that I worked on was when Dr. Bowers was here a while ago, and so a lot of those are outdated. Some of the links have been lost. Faculty have left, and their accounts are closed. So we're kind of making a transition here, and also, we're trying to figure out what do the parents and students want within that, what information do they need. So hopefully this will help us with that, but also gather some information if I include that spot on there that allows them to provide some feedback for it. So all the courses though, the first page will look similar to the social studies one you got, but each individual link from the teacher made that document, so those are a little bit different. So it goes through all the courses. Specials would include our exploratory health media. And then at secondary steering, people ask to have a BOCES link, so we created this one. And then down here, links to the BOCES webpage, which goes into more details of all the programs being offered. And then I included links to the counseling department. Their spot on our website is great. They have a lot of great information there, but a lot of people don't go there. So hopefully this will help to increase the traffic there for the great information that they have. And then some information about Colgate courses. And a lot of people don't know about this as well. Like New York State publishes all the old Regents exams and everything. They have a lot of New York State NYSEN website has a lot of information around Regents exams, preparing for Regents exams. And so all these links will link to all those different places. Graduation requirements is a common question that parents ask, how many credits do they need, and like that. So with the course progression, you can kind of see it does get a little crazy sometimes in some of the subjects. But algebra could go to personal finance, could go to BOCES math, and algebra 2 doesn't have to go to pre-calculus, but this would be a typical progression that we would see with students. I mean, this student could go to personal finance, but it does just give an outline of typical pathways that the students would take. And that's that.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I have to say that I think you and your team, and Heather, you and your team too, I didn't expect you guys to get this far with curriculum math to this point in the year. So great job. I think you're hitting it out of the park here. Everything that you're showing us is pretty much what we asked for.
Yeah, perfect.
And thank
Yeah,
you
thank
to
you.
all of you.
Yeah, the teachers did a lot of the adding links. So it's a live document too, so that when they make changes, it'll be changed automatically.
Kevin and Chris too, I'm sure you get what it
Thank you.
is. Mark, I do have 2 questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
One is related to your report, and the other has to do with extracurricular. So I think you touched on it. I see it on the daily bulletin emails. What is going on with the seniors and Colgate concessions?
So Colgate was having problems manning the
Uh-huh.
concession stands at different events that they had.
Okay.
So I believe it was a women's hockey game I believe they went to. Yeah. And they were able to fill the bags of popcorn and pour some sodas, and they received, I don't know what the percentage is. Is it a percentage or just an individual fee? But Ms. Lehman reported that it made something like $84 just in tips from working the event.
Okay.
So they're behind the concessions in the back, helping to, like I said, bag up popcorn and
So what
put
happens
some
is,
hot dogs and buns.
generally speaking, what happens is the staff that, in food service, the area, the staff,
At
they don't,
Colgate.
at Colgate, they don't have enough people to work, or they're paying too much overtime. So what they do is they take a group, like from us, and we've done this throughout the years. They take a group from us and they give a one-time fee, and so they're paying less than they would in the overtime, and they're getting more bodies, but the group is making a great amount of money.
So that's my
So it's a
question.
great
They are,
fundraiser.
so our students are working concession stands at Colgate voluntarily,
Yep.
and are they getting paid personally, or
No.
is it, okay?
No, it's-
No, and
it's
it's not,
fundraiser.
it's not unique to our extracurricular groups. The Rotary Club is doing a handful of nights. There are a number of community groups that are doing it as a volunteer community service and fundraiser because of the short staffing.
But it's not an individual, like nobody walks home with money.
Yeah, that's where I was confused. You know, when I read it, you know, I'm like, are we a temp agency? But I knew we weren't. That's why I'm asking these questions, you know?
But it's not unique to our community.
That's what-
Like, this
yeah.
happens across the country.
Everywhere.
Yeah. This is common occurrence.
And it's happened for several years at Colgate,
Okay,
at our school.
that's great to hear, and I'm glad they.
And we've actually, Sue Lehman, sorry Mark for jumping in, but Sue Lehman, Mark and I worked together on this. We sent out an email to all of our advisors. Sue jumped right on it, I believe, because she's had experience in the past.
She has.
to doing
In the
it.
yearbook.
And now I know of at least one other group that's very interested because of the feedback from Sue. And so
Right.
Sue's been a good ambassador for our other advisors because she's had a good experience.
Yeah, that's all great to know.
Yep.
So I had a question about extracurricular. Might as well do it now because you gave your report. Let me just start by saying I'm very excited with all that you reported. You know, we've all talked about how important, you know, after-school activities are. We all know that. That's great. So I did see the esports video, and you know, I've been kind of excited for esports. You know, like I don't know anything about video games for the most part. So it was kind of cool to see. But I watched the video, and it was cool. But let's see what I wrote this down so I got it all right here. Okay, so is the game on there Overwatch?
I haven't watched the video myself, but I know that one of the video games that they play is Overwatch.
So here's my concern, just as a board member, because this is a school-sponsored program. The video I saw had realistic characters going through shooting people. So I was like, oh, that's, I don't know, is that something we should do? So I just did a quick search on the game that was listed there. It said Overwatch. I didn't know if it was a game. I looked up. It is a game. So I don't know who could answer this, but just the quick review I saw for it said, Overwatch, rated 13 and over for blood, use of tobacco, and violence. Combat shooting game. Players use a variety of firearms such as pistols, machine guns, and futuristic weapons. Realistic gunfire. Cries of pain, explosions. Splashes of blood briefly appear with each successful hit. A character is depicted smoking a cigar. Is that all accurate?
Yes.
Okay. What administrator gives approval for what games will be played as a part of the club? Who is responsible for esports?
Esports is a league, right? Does the league dictate what games they play?
But I mean, it's a rated T for teen game, and we don't have any middle schoolers. So everyone's over 13.
Okay. But I guess my question is, all extracurricular clubs have an advisor, but Mark, is it the high school principal that is the administrator, the overseer of those clubs?
Yep.
So were you aware that this game is being played in esports?
Was I aware of this particular game? No.
Okay. Are you comfortable with a game with all of the items I just listed being school-sponsored program?
Am I comfortable?
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, in a time when school shootings and violence are becoming the norm, is this game or games like it depicting realistic shooting and deaths appropriate for us to be allowing our students to participate in as part of a school-sponsored club? I think you can tell where I feel about it, but I don't know. Is that, how does, esports is new, and I know I probably sound all
Sure.
footloose here, but is this type of game appropriate for HCS to be sponsored?
I think that it is. I'm not prepared to engage in a really thoughtful conversation about it at the moment, but I can, at the next board meeting, I'd be happy to present you the reams of research that prove that there just is no link between violence of any kind and violent video games. That there is no link there. And I think these kids are playing these games anyway. And it's not necessarily that we are endorsing these games. I mean, we've got kids that play football, and certainly people actually get hurt playing football. Nobody really gets hurt playing Overwatch.
And I know there is that research, I'm aware of it.
Right.
I'm asking, is this an appropriate game for the school to be sponsoring, or games like that with realistic shooting games? With, I just asked you if all this stuff is accurate, cries of pain, blood. I'm not gonna go any further on it, but I'm just letting you know that I'm excited about the esports club. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering, do we need to put more focus on what kinds of games are being played in it, or any extracurricular program? Just keep that in mind is all I'm saying.
Well,
But
let's-
Bill, I'm referring that to you.
Yeah.
I've said my piece.
We will have an internal conversation administratively, and then we'll report back at the next board meeting.
I appreciate that, thank you.
But I would just want to support Chris that these video games are played around the world. School shootings are not happening around the world. So it's a problem that's not related to video games. There's plenty of evidence that shows that the epidemic of school violence and school shootings is not related to video games, it's related to other policies that are outside of our control, and definitely outside of the control of the esports.
No, I agree with that, and I'm not gonna get in the discussion over here.
No,
I agree with that part of
Chris, 'cause I
it.
think
I was just kinda caught off guard that, and you know where I'm at.
Thank you.
We'll be back to you next month.
Thank you.
Bill?
So in addition to my written report, I have a number of things that I would like to discuss with you. The first is a COVID update. We had our Madison County Department of Health meeting today. Let me just give you an overview of where the county is as far as COVID. They have 60 new cases. Their 7-day average is 37. They have 255 active cases in the county as of this morning. The 7-day percent positivity as a county is 6.8%. Central New York is 5.7. The New York State average is 3.4. So the county's high. Vaccinations as of 11/17, 69.9% of the total population has at least one dose. 80.4% of the 18-plus population with at least one dose. And then 64.9% of the total population is completely vaccinated. In age breakdown, 5 to 11-year-olds, 6.9% of the county is vaccinated. 12 to 17, 62.9%. And then 18 to 25-year-olds, 55.8%. Some other data, Hamilton, number of cases in the past 7 days, they have 11 new cases. That puts us in a substantially high transmission zone. 1.1% of the fully vaccinated residents have had breakthrough cases. So the cases are on the rise in the county. To help mitigate that, we are doing testing protocols internally. I'll give you an update as to where we are at. Since we started our pool testing on September 30th, we've tested 86 adults. Out of those pool tests, we've had one positive trip. We've tested 110 students. We've had one positive trip. Total positive cases within our building, outside exposure through contact tracing, we've had 4 positive staff cases, 11 students that have tested positive. We've had 3 staff members placed in mandatory quarantine, and we've had 39 students placed in mandatory quarantine. So our mitigation strategies are working. We are going to continue to push vaccination. I let the county know that we'd be very interested in hosting a vaccination clinic for the 6 through 11 population. Right now, that's going to be difficult as far as the county is concerned because they are short-staffed, and they recommended today that we should probably try to partner with a pharmacy and see if that can happen here. So I'll be reaching out to Doherty's to see if they can help us with a vaccination clinic here in Hamilton.
And there are 2 vaccine clinics this weekend.
There are.
For the
Yes.
younger kids.
Yep, and Chris has done a great job
Yes,
helping
I
push
saw
those
them.
out.
It's awesome.
And let parents know
Thank you.
the availability of those clinics. So we're trying to push vaccinations to the best of our ability, and then it's really up to parent choice. But we feel it's really important.
Have you talked to CMH at all about working with them?
I've not.
I'm not sure they have the people power either, but maybe betwixt and between,
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to.
I can certainly reach out to CMH. Yeah,
So we're doing the pool testing, we're doing the random testing for students.
we are.
Are all districts doing that in the state?
They're not.
Are they supposed to be?
It's recommended.
Recommended, not required.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're required to provide a testing protocol,
Okay,
and we've elected to test.
okay.
My question on that, and maybe you haven't answered this, I'm looking at those numbers, and I'm looking at your notes. We've only had 1 adult, 1 student test positive from the proactive
Mhm.
samples, right? And then, but we've had many more, 15 total test positive from symptomatic cases.
Mhm.
Does this, I mean, this is maybe just because we're still at a very small sample size. Does this tell us that that we're not doing enough of this surveillance testing? Is it not catching enough, or is this where you would expect the numbers to be for surveillance testing?
I don't think it says you're not doing enough, because if it was saying you weren't doing enough, you'd be having outbreaks in the school. And you're not. At least that's my, without having sat and thought about it real hard, answer. I think that's actually fairly typical for what you see for screening programs. The county is high, but to my knowledge, the immediate community, I mean, there's 11 positives now, which is a little higher than it's been.
Mhm.
But up until recently, the local community rate has not been exceptionally high. And so I think that's, I don't think you need to test more to look for more. I think, but I don't know. I would have to think about that a little bit harder. But no, it doesn't stand out to me as being, I think it's good news.
Okay.
I want to play devil's advocate.
Mhm.
Are there any legal liabilities or ramifications to worry about with hosting a vaccination clinic? I know across the country you see stories here and there of, a student got vaccination without the parent consent, or an adult dose was given. So
It would be consensual.
Well,
So
you would be hosting a space.
Correct.
We would, the school district would not be providing the
We wouldn't be
vaccine.
administering.
No.
The school district would be providing a space that's easily accessible and comfortable for the community.
Mhm.
Somebody else would be providing the vaccine. So any
So-
issues with the vaccine would be the responsibility of the
So
vaccine
in theory, what
provider.
you're saying is the legal liability would fall on that provider.
Correct.
Not
Yeah.
us, because we would be just the space rented out.
Correct.
Yeah. Be very similar to a blood drive, if you will. We'd provide the space, they would conduct the testing.
Our
For the
we do a flu
vaccinations.
shot clinic every year.
Yeah, flu shot. Any other questions on COVID before I move on? If you would, Travis, pass those down. So we've received a number of comments from parents about the safety of our pickup and drop-off procedures, particularly in our main parking lot, about students cutting through buses. We've had a number of vehicles pass buses within our parking lot with their lights on that have been reported to HPD. So we've been receiving some feedback. So in the big picture of safety, we're looking at some different procedures, and we'd like to try this, kind of change this up before winter. So if you would look, we're going to, and Lorna's going to test this tomorrow, her and her bus drivers, after dismissal. If you look to see between door 3 and 4, we're going to move the buses to drop off in that area. So it's a more isolated area that then students...
Instead of the main parking lot.
Instead of the main parking lot. So just moving them down. And then we would expand, not really expand, but open up the space where middle school and high school would pick up and drop off in the green. So if you look at the green arrow. So basically we're just moving the buses to a more isolated space. Elementary students who ride the bus would offload through door 3. And then middle school, high school students would offload through door 4, which is this hallway here. And then we would take pre-K, K1 and 2 would all go in door 1.
So that's parental drop-off.
That's parental drop-off in the circle, yeah. And that would allow students to go with inclement weather to go directly into the elementary library.
Yep.
And then door 2 would be grades 3, 4, and 5.
And do they go into the cafeteria then? Or?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the buses, after they offload, would go down into this back parking lot and turn around. So we're going to have to rearrange our parking from our staff that parks back here. And we're going to kind of play around with that to see if that works. So it's an attempt to kind of clear up the chaos in the main parking lot and to provide more of a safe pick up and drop off.
Big change either.
Big change, yeah.
What about the lines at the doors at 3 and 4? In the mornings, there's lines, like the kids are waiting to get in, but if there's buses going down that way, are the kids just going in directly, or?
So the buses would go into that area earlier than kids would be walking in and out. So they would offload, and we would still have our aides and TAs there to help offload into those areas.
No, but like, so if I'm dropping off a kid and walking into door 3.
Okay.
Right, so a middle schooler is walking, a middle schooler has to walk in someplace, right? They ride their bike, they walk into door 3. That's what they currently do.
Correct.
But right now, they wait in the morning till the door's opened. But buses come in at that time. So what are you doing with those kids that are there a couple of minutes early?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if there's 20 middle schoolers that are here
There's a line.
before the
that goes
buses
out.
start to come in, they're typically lining up right now, basically.
And same thing with the high school door, because I see those,
Well, they can line up onto the sidewalk, can't they?
there's no,
Well, we know when the buses will arrive, right?
Correct.
So could we just make sure the doors open 5 minutes before the buses arrive?
We could, and we could, if there's students waiting out there, our supervisors at that time could either move them into the weight room area or into this main hallway, so they're out of the way of the buses.
Right.
We just have to monitor it and supervise it.
maybe they're allowed to wait in this hallway as opposed to going further. They stop up at this end and they're in the hallway waiting, I don't know, but.
As long as they don't come in here and mess with our chair.
I mean, you're really gonna need the monitors out there anyway, because if the buses are coming through where kids are being dropped off, which they are, you're just gonna need the monitors there.
Definitely, I just know
Stopping
there's
traffic
longer-
as a bus
there's
comes through,
lines
right? I
out there in the
mean,
morning,
Yeah.
so.
And the arrival of each bus is not an exact science, especially in the next few months.
Or months,
yeah.
With inclement weather, and so, yeah, but like Bill said, we're gonna
Just make
have to
sure.
monitor it and see.
Now, what about snow removal on the way to that back? Is that gonna be an issue? Like, is that area of the grounds like a draft area, or is that gonna play part in the winter? If you're having the buses go down that way now?
No.
But anyway.
It's already
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cleaned out because
Anyways.
we have faculty.
I know it's cleaned out, but it's a short little alleyway, is what I'm saying.
No, they'll have room to
They won't-
navigate it.
yeah.
And we can fit, how many buses can fit in that area? Is it all the buses? So
Well,
all
that's
the-
what we're gonna
That's
test
what we
tomorrow.
need to
That's what
test,
that's
because
Is there where these diagonal lines are?
Yes, those diagonal lines represent the 5 buses.
And those, and the reality is, the first bus will be past door 4 in all likelihood. And what we need to test is to make sure that the back of bus 5 is clear of door 3, basically,
Right.
right? Because that's what's gonna prevent kids being dropped off from crossing buses. So that's what Lauren and her team are gonna play around with. How much of an angle can they get at? You know, how far ahead does bus 1 have to pull in so bus 5 can be clear of the crosswalk, so.
Well, it's nice to know that you guys are adjusting, and I wish them.
And it's possible that it doesn't work.
Right.
And,
Right.
you
But you may not even be able to get the buses in, right? You don't even know if you can do that yet, right?
We
Yeah.
don't. So it's possible that the Monday, you know, we don't communicate anything and nothing changes for the time being, so.
So this would be, sorry, just to go back to timeline. Test tomorrow. If it works, then it would go out and start Monday?
It would
That soon,
start
or
after Thanksgiving break.
After Thanksgiving.
Yep,
Well,
so we
it's
would-
not Monday.
Yeah.
We'd draft a letter, we'd share this map, push it out to all of our families, and let them know, from faculty and staff, because it's going to affect some of the faculty and staff that park in the back parking lot, who will have to move to the front parking lot.
Now, I'm gonna-
And will middle school and high school students continue to go in door 3, like the drop-off students? Because I don't see that indicated.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they would.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to backtrack. I've known it's an issue, but especially when you see the overhead, the parking lots and bus loops are just a nightmare. I can't remember, is that part of phase 3?
Phase 3 is paving and curbing of the bus loop.
What I see is I think it was the old ag room, but the extension off the bus garage. Where it's too bad there's not like a driveway there where you
Well-
can loop around.
Stay tuned for future projects.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
I want to say thank you because this is something I've also noticed. It gives me such anxiety every morning because I'm like, don't go behind that bus, don't do this, wait, that kid's going there. Like, it's, so thank you
Yeah, we've had
guys for
some parents reach out
recognizing
with
that.
concerns about it, so
Yeah.
we want to,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Next up?
Next, we have the opportunity to host the Billy Martin Circus that I wanted to have a discussion with you to gauge your comfort level. So the Morrisville Lions Club has reached out to us to see if we'd be interested in hosting the circus on January 30th. They were going to be at Morrisville High School on the 29th. So they thought they would offer it to us free of charge for our community. I talked to Randy Freeman. He's very familiar with the Billy Martin Circus. They performed at his old school a number of times. He said they're excellent. They come in, they set up, they leave, they clean. It's pretty efficient. We would conduct this with your approval with our COVID protocol, so it'd be very similar to an athletic event, but it'd be the circus. So we'd require masking. Right now, there's no capacity limits for any indoor activities. I think it'd be wonderful to provide to our community and to our kids. But I wanted to have a discussion before we move too much further with this. They would provide a certificate of liability. There's no liability to the district.
When you say it's free of charge, I mean, we don't have to pay them to come here, but are
Correct.
they charging an admission?
They would charge an admission, yes, but there's no fee to the district to host.
So this, their website says it's a fundraising event for the school. Is that the intent? So the idea of charging an admission, do they keep the admission or does the school get some?
The Lions
portion?
Club, I don't know if the Lions Club, would,
Got
the
it.
Morrisville Lions Club would then make a donation to the school. We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
And do we know that the performers would be willing to adhere to the COVID protocol
Yeah,
as well?
absolutely, yeah.
Do we know anything about the vaccination or testing status of these performers?
I don't. I can get that information if that would help inform your decision.
I'll defer to somebody who's a different kind of doctor.
I think it would be good to know. And I guess honestly, the
I'm
only
gonna
other,
guess no.
not necessarily. But again, the only other question in the back of my mind, and for whatever reason it was my immediate thought, is just making sure that there are no concerns about the history of this organization and inappropriate treatment of people or animals, or some association with other organizations that we would not want to be affiliated with, or, do you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, that was my immediate thought. And again, I don't know anything about them, I'm looking at
Here's a question I have. Heather, maybe you could answer this for me. Kevin, maybe you could too. If we were to host a circus like this, what kind of impact do you think it would have on the children that we have that would likely attend it, as far as social, emotional? Would it like really be beneficial for them to have like something like this after the last year and a half to go to?
I guess my answer, I feel fairly neutral on that, honestly, Travis. I think,
Yeah, I probably would.
I think some families, I don't know if I can speak on behalf of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tough question to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like what Ellen had talked about too, I think there's going to be a little bit of that. There'll be some kids that have never seen a circus, that or been to a zoo.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you'd find benefits and negatives. I'd say neutral as well too.
I think my only concern would be the equity in being able to attend. We're working on DE&I in the building as a goal, and if this is something that families need to pay to attend,
Those kids are free.
Yeah, there's free kids
get
coupons on the
They don't
website.
charge much.
With a paid adult admission, I think.
just making sure that
Oh, okay.
it's free to all of our kids.
This just says admit one child 12 years or younger free, so, on
It
their
doesn't say
website.
with it being
I guess where I'd be at is I'm all for it. My concern would be it's hard to know where we'll be, what we're talking about, January or something?
Yeah.
It's hard to know what will be going on at the end of January right now. So I guess anything would be contingent upon
Right.
however you would word that.
Which is how we word all of our
Yeah, and-
scripts and stuff.
And I guess my thought in terms of the question of vaccination, et cetera, is that I would ask that any of the performers be held to the same expectation that any of the staff in this building is. And so the staff in this building is not required to be vaccinated, but those that are not vaccinated are required to test
Test.
weekly.
Right. Yeah.
So I think my thought in terms of that, because my gut is that kids are gonna have close interactions with these people at some level, right? Like if there are kids here, a kid may be pulled out of the crowd to come in to be in part of the performance, and kids are gonna be in contact with, that's just my thought.
Mhm.
I don't, and I'm not
I feel
saying
like
that that's,
realistic.
I'm not saying that that's a rigid rule in my book, I think it's just a place to start, like.
I think too that your second part kind of changes the question, but how do we treat outside contractors in the building as far as
They have to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test.
So that's the standard.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'd say all outside people should be treated the same. So however we're doing outside contractors in the building is how we should do something like that.
I would have to imagine that they should be expecting this.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that they're not expecting.
So I think generally speaking, from what I'm hearing, we're in favor as long as we're being COVID safe.
I can have some questions answered for you.
Yeah.
Make a decision as well.
Well, and it's not a thing that we're voting on either.
Right, we don't need to vote on it,
You're
right,
seeking
like-
our opinion.
Yeah, just, yeah.
And if they perform at other school districts, if you know anybody who's had them, it might be worth just saying.
Well, they're gonna perform at Morrisville.
I say, I think they
So-
performed it in Morrisville.
Yeah.
But we'd have to decide before they got to Morrisville,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it seems like it seems like they perform around.
Mhm.
So maybe if there's another superintendent in your group that you could just say, oh, how'd that go?
Sure.
It might be worth.
Okay.
Do we test the animals?
No. Our deer have it.
Yes, they do.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the news.
Next up, in response to some public comments at our last board meeting about contents of books being offered and inappropriate content that has been conveyed to us. I'm working with Mrs. Jerome, Mr. Arquette, and Mrs. Moran. We've had meetings. Mrs. Jerome has done a lot of work behind the scenes to provide some sample policies that I'll be sharing with the policy committee. We do have a policy that I would like our policy committee to review. Mrs. Jerome just shared with me today. It's a really good resource. It's the National Council of Teachers of English, and BOCES is also working with the American Library Association, responding to book challenges, a handbook for educators. It's got some really good information in here. I just want us to, and I know we will, but I want us to caution about First Amendment rights and censorship. We should be providing rich discussions. We should be talking about diversity across all groups. And I want us to be very careful about jumping to banning books and censoring what we are providing to our students. So, you know, I'm hearing, we're listening, but I want us to be very careful in this process, because I don't want us to limit the rich dialogue that should be happening in our classrooms. So that's the work we're doing. There is work being done behind the scenes that I'll be reporting back out to you as a board, and we're gonna look deeply. BOCES is looking deeply at policies and procedures. Specifically, if there's a challenge, what is the proper way to challenge a book? And to make sure that books are being read thoroughly from the challenge, and not just snippets being taken out of books. So you're getting the full context of what is being talked about, what is being discussed, and I want us to be careful with appropriate and inappropriate. So that's where we're at with some of the comments that were made at our last board meeting.
Yeah, and I just say, again, not talking about any specific content in general, but being careful about whose perspective it is that's being used to decide what's offensive and what's not. And being sure that when you put a barrier for access to any information for kids, when that barrier only exists for certain identities and certain groups and certain type topics, where there might not exist that same barrier for things that could offend people of certain identities, right? And that those, which people's offenses are being monitored and safeguarded, and which ones aren't, and what message is that sent to a kid who might need to see representation and benefit from that representation. And if that barrier exists, and that barrier sometimes requires parental approval, and maybe the parental approval isn't something they're comfortable with yet at that point. So these are all messier issues than we think if we just think about simple solutions, is put the books in a special case, right? That doesn't, I don't think that can cause more problems than we think, right?
I'm glad you're looking at that.
Yeah.
Have a good way to move forward.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
important to have a well thought out process.
Absolutely.
For navigating.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And for having the hard discussions when it's uncomfortable,
Mhm.
but it's still okay for it to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Mrs. Jerome
Part of
and
the process.
Mrs. Moran have done a wonderful job. You know, and for them to take the leap is brave and courageous, and you know, they're doing it for diversifying our student population. And you know, I've said this before, you know, looking at it through multiple lenses and not just sharing a single story. And I think that's important. You know, our students should be exposed to lots of different stories, and that will help them. You know, our charge should be to prepare students to move beyond our walls. And if we're looking at it through one lens, I think we're doing a disservice to our students. We should be looking at it through multiple lenses and preparing our students to move into a global society.
And I think it's fair to say that there's at least a large contingent of this community that greatly values educators' academic freedom, and that educators, that we trust that educators are working in good faith to do what they believe is best for their students, and that those of us who might only have a limited perspective can't always understand the things that the educators who are steeped in the work do understand, and they understand have a greater vision that is for the students. And so I think that there's a large contingent of this community that would support that.
Thank you. And that's what I have for my report.
elementary committee? Oh, sorry, did we, I feel like we already did corrections, so we'll move to elementary committee.
So the elementary steering committee's been going full guns. Like Heather presented, sort of implementing one of the actions from last year was getting the Colgate athletes here at recess. And so that'll be something that's fun moving forward. Sort of an amazing list of brainstorm ideas have come forward, and just at the meeting today, we sort of made the decision to push forward with two. One, springboarding from Dr. Brown's presentation about student voice, and working to get more input from the students, even at the elementary level, inviting them to come to the steering team, inviting members of the student council to come to the steering team, talk about how to make the school better from their perspective on report cards, and asking where else they want to voice, things like that. And then the second major project that I think has been discussed a lot over the years, again, is report cards. Looking to get parent feedback, teacher feedback, student feedback, and then looking at the research about what's out there. It was actually really kind of cool today, talking with one of the teachers who's already having her kids do self-evaluation. So she's sitting down and having them do self-evaluation, and then sitting with her evaluation and working with them, and then sending them home and having them talk to their parents about it. And it sounds amazing. And so sort of using those tools and having the kids set their own goals about, identifying things that are going well and things where they need help and how will they get that help and those sorts of things. And I mean, she's what grade? Fourth grade. So that's fourth grade. She's got fourth graders doing that, and everybody's thrilled and doing well. And so moving forward with those ideas, and then, knowing that a new report card would not be developed until maybe a summer curriculum project or into next year. But those are the projects that we talked about for the most part moving forward. Fair? Anything else you would throw out?
No, that was great.
Julia?
Secondary?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with Mark looking at the curriculum maps that we saw, and we were happy with that, and giving some feedback for where we could see how that could be more useful for parents. And since then, we've seen what Mark has done with his team, which is very good. We also talked a little bit about kind of an overview of what the steering committee has done in the past, and then thinking about what we wanted to work on in the near future. A couple of things that come up. One issue that is always at our minds is this kind of divide that starts to happen even as early as middle school of, BOCES kids versus non-BOCES kids, or whatever the divide is, and making sure that there's ways to cross over and make sure that kids see that there's value in career pathways that might not be what they think is their pathway, but there's more overlap than they think, and that kids can benefit from different academic opportunities across the curriculum. And then we talked about even something as simple as maybe it might benefit to think about coordinating school supplies a little bit more, so adding to the curriculum maps school supply lists, especially if they're pretty consistent. And then maybe even if we coordinated it to the place where, if we know that we need 500 notebooks every semester, maybe, the school can help coordinate maybe through the PTO of just having those on hand, and, parent donations, instead of every parent buying, that we buy in bulk and it costs a lot less. So maybe thinking about some of those things going forward, if there's some way to coordinate all that, and the steering committee can help work with that. So those are just some of the ideas we're thinking about.
You guys are busy. Thank you both. The Emerald Foundation talked about some applications that were submitted. I lost my words, sorry. So they did that, and they're also really working at changing their membership, trying to get new membership. They've got somebody that's going off the committee, and they're trying to fill that space and a little bit, bulk up their committee a little bit. And so they're working on that. And that's that. There was some knowledge sharing that went through today. Is that stuff that we are going to talk about today, or is it,
I added something on, and I would like to and it would be super quick.
Go for it.
And I just wanted to share, because you were at Dr. Brown's talk.
Yeah, I forgot there was a form we're supposed to fill out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just been kind of reading, I have a few.
I actually, sort of wanted to process it a little more fully than I have been able to, but I was, like, at the end of it, and I missed a lot of it because I got pulled out for a
Yeah.
work meeting. But at the end of it, I sort of walked away as a board member. Like, as a person, there were a lot of other things I absorbed. As a board member, I walked away, and I'll be curious, you and I haven't talked about this at all. I'm
No.
curious as to where you landed. Like, with 4 major things, and one of them is that policy is not neutral. And I gotta find my actual page on the notes about that. And policy either perpetuates, mitigates, or eliminates biases. And so I just thought that, for me, that was a really interesting, like, policy's not neutral. So when we're writing policy, more power to you. Just remembering that in that. The second thing was just his absolute emphasis on student voice and finding ways to bring student voice here and getting student voice into this room. I mean, he talked about actually regularly having students at board meetings, sharing their experiences and expressing. Curriculum and assessment. He took all of that and turned it on its head in a way that is not bad. And it's something that I already had seeded in my brain from some prior reading, and that is the sense of what is the basis of what you are valuing, and you have to really stop and reassess that, and reassess how you are evaluating kids, how you are assessing if a kid is succeeding, and it's essentially individualized programming, right? I mean, each kid has a different measure of success, and so that was something for me. And then he also talked a lot, and I think it particularly struck home, having just had the meeting where we were talking about the books, about strategies and ways of affirming and validating all of these viewpoints, and affirming and validating, and then building the bridges to where we need to be. And I feel like that's something that we have the ability to do, but need to grow in. And so those were my 4 takeaways. Those were, like, at the end of the day, I walked away and I wrote 4 things down. And those were the 4 things I wrote down as a board member. So I just wanted to share those for sort of future consideration
Yeah.
and discussion.
Yeah. I have 3 quick, well, this will be the quicker thing. I attended the Dr. Lavelle Brown presentation as well. I saw you had a notebook.
Mhm.
I was like, I gotta stop taking notes. I need to just listen to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wasn't gonna get any of it in. I went mainly so I could better understand all things DEI in general. His presentation did just that. I'm glad I went. Along with a good portion of our staff, there were also members of other districts there. I thought it was kind of interesting. I think some of the audience likely thought he was some sort of prophet, and I'm pretty sure I saw some people leave in disagreement, so I think it all kind of evened out. I jotted down my pros too, I obtained a much better understanding of the verbiage that will be used in the DEI policy just in general. Very helpful. He did a great job of kind of giving examples. I was able to see and understand things from a way I otherwise would not have, which was very beneficial. An example of that was a story, I don't know if you were there for it, he told a story about a school in Iowa, I believe, that found out that by not providing education on different cultures, their students were not being prepared for a college where they basically became culture shocked once they went there. I never would have thought of that. It was just, I wouldn't have thought that far. I thought that our staff asked great questions. Okay, so I wrote cons, and I don't mean this in a bad way. This is just my personal observation. I think our teachers hope to obtain some helpful tips on how to have these difficult conversations with their students. When asked this question, he seemingly shrugged it off and essentially said, just do it, don't worry about them, let them complain to the school board if they get upset. I appreciate his honesty, I guess. I think they were hoping for a little bit more, but that wasn't necessarily what they were there for. Now, I kind of took a different way on, I agree with a lot of stuff, but when he was pressed on assessment, I have a different take. I think it's fair to say that in an ideal world, he would advise to get rid of all assessments and never pull a student from a class. At the surface, one might be in favor, But you have to remember how beneficial assessments like Fontes and Pinnell are, and how pivotal our RTI classes have been for our students. The way I took him talking, he would get rid of Fontes and Pinnell, get rid of RTI, but that wasn't really what he was there to talk about. That's just, hypothetical down the road. So I didn't really agree with that. There were other little things, okay, but all in all. So my takeaways were, I would have loved to have more time with him, and I'm sure everybody will, in a smaller setting. It was hard. I wasn't going to ask a question. I'm there as a board member. It's not for me to ask questions. He's a very accomplished and genuine person, and I was so glad I was given the opportunity to hear him speak and to have a very short conversation with him after. He's a really nice guy, very personable. I think his presentation was very beneficial for our staff. Though I'd welcome him back, and this isn't my department, it was just kind of my takeaway. I think any future P days on this topic should focus in on the how and not the what. It seemed like the staff had questions, and he was more like broad topic where they just needed that little piece, and it's like, okay. Having so little time with him on such a broad topic was a bit of a buzzkill. I wrote that, I was like, I wish we had more time, but for the, 2.5 hours in?
Yeah.
Packed a lot in.
He did.
And so I was very glad I went. It was very helpful for me, so I was glad I was able to do it.
Is he coming back?
He wants to come back.
I had this sense that this was the intro, and then there was a second how, right? Like, that was my sense of what this, this was his intro, and it needed to happen, because there are some people who have never done any work in this, and needed that.
Yeah.
And then my sense was that there's a follow-up, that's the how. So if he does come back, I think that's my sense, is that now is the, okay, how?
And that was
I get the what, now I need the how.
Yeah. So if you saw I don't know if you're able to click on them with the links, but the feedback from the faculty was, we would love to have him back, but we'd like to have it more workshop, not lecture-based. And so you can find out the how, and ask really pointed questions that are germane to Hamilton.
Right.
And so he's very expensive.
What's the cost?
However, their BOCES is working on a DEI COSER, that DEI PD can be aidable. So we're trying to work on that as well. And if there's a time that fits with his schedule, with our schedule, we will have him back. Because I think it's important to have him back to continue the discussions. This was a kickoff, and I think he was well received. Well, our faculty wants more.
I think he was very well received, and he was presenting information that had the potential to be very not well received.
Yeah.
And I thought he was very well received.
Yeah.
That made me happy.
And what was really encouraging, Dr. Dorsey Spencer from Colgate, who Jen and I had a meeting with particular to Hamilton, was able to attend and have a conversation with Dr. Brown.
Oh, good.
And start that, and we're actually going to set up a time where we go to Ithaca
Cool.
and to meet with him and kind of look around and have a conversation with him, to have, because Dorsey's here and he's willing to help us, and Dr. Brown may not be available. So how do we intersect those two to create a kind of a pathway moving forward for us? And just to clarify his stance on assessments, he was talking state assessments, Regents exams, 3 through 8 testing.
Because that's not how it came off to the realm, I don't think.
Individualized formative assessments in the building, he's okay with.
He is.
Not okay with some of the structures to do that.
Right.
But in talking to him after, it was more the Regents exams in 3 through 8 assessments. It's New York State standardized testing.
I'm glad it was a good session.
Really good.
I think he'd be great. If you can bring him for a prep rally, he's
He's full of energy.
Yeah, he's great.
Was there other knowledge sharing?
That was it for me.
I have 2 quick things. Again, I forgot all about that form. I'll make sure I fill them out. So I've got over the book club. I'm going to be quick because I know we're running late here.
Look how little that is.
Robert's Rules of Order in Action, How to Participate in Meetings with Confidence. This is a great book. I'll stop there.
Well, here, go pass it this
Yeah,
way. You know I want to look at it.
That one's good. That will help. That's like examples of what's going on.
Oh, that's cool.
very helpful. Next, my thirst for knowledge here. The Essential School Board book, Better Governance in the Age of Accountability. This is a book you guys might like. This book I would recommend to any board member, superintendent, or any administrator with aspirations of someday becoming a superintendent. This book was published in 2009, and in a nutshell, it discusses how the No Child Left Behind Act changed the role of school boards. Throughout the book, it tells about high-functioning school boards whose students are excelling. One of the goals of the author was to give concrete examples of successful boards, ones whose work has contributed appreciably to student improvement. So it just gives examples of school boards that really continued, it's all based on student achievement.
Thank you.
For advocacy, I shared with you guys the link from the NISBA annual business meeting. I thought I was going into an hour-long meeting, not a 4.5-hour-long meeting. It was like the meeting that I thought was seriously never going to end.
It was virtual,
But
right?
it was virtual, what almost made it worse. Yeah, but
You needed that book.
it was very formalized, and there were some heated discussion on some of these topics, and there were some of them that it's like, oh my gosh, people couldn't just vote on this. But we did get through it, and I shared that link with you guys of the efforts that NISBA plans to move forward with this year. There's a couple dates I wanted to share, and I think you guys got these, but I just felt it was worth recognizing as well. The 2022 Legislative and State Budget Preview Webinar, which I did attend last year, which was helpful. It's Thursday, December 9th from 12 to 1:30. And so basically it's a webinar to hear NISBA's analysis of the current political environment and what it might mean for education. And the staff will review NISBA's budget and legislative priorities for that. Then there's, and this is actually for parents, staff, anybody in the district that they're asking us to really promote, was the question, what should a diploma signify? And I think that got sent out to everyone as well. So they have opened this up to each region to, again, get feedback. They have a format set up so that it can be pretty active engagement. So ours, for our area, is January 5th from 5 to 7:30. And for more information, you can go to grad measures at nyscb.gov. And they do have a flyer available, so I thought maybe we could get that out as that date approaches. And then, one other date. So the 2022 Capitol Conference, which again I attended last year, and I got so much information from it. It's going to be held virtually again this year, the morning of February 2nd. So again, I learned a lot from that. And then the in-person lobby day is Wednesday, February 9th. So that's basically what I got right now.
And then the last thing on there was the hub. We got an email about the hub.
Did we do athletics?
I have athletics update.
Oh, I thought that was, we didn't do that. We did the extracurricular, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right, athletics, sorry.
So Ms. Freeth couldn't be here, it's her birthday, so happy birthday to
Happy
her.
birthday.
So she provided an
Glad she did
update. The fall 2021 season is concluded with the girls soccer team seeded number 9, boys soccer team seeded number 6, volleyball seeded number 3 in sectional play, and cross country all competing in sectionals. Cross country ended their season by placing 3rd in the Section 3 Class D2 championships. Cross country also won the CSC championship, which the boys and girls teams have not won together since 1988.
Wow.
Many of our fall student athletes were recognized by the Center State Conference for their athletic ability on the field, court, and course. Winter sports are now upon us. Modified volleyball started on October 25th, with 27 female athletes participating between the grades of 7 and 8. JV and varsity winter sports began practice on Monday. Between the 4 HCS basketball teams, JV boys and girls, and varsity boys and girls, there's a total number of 44 students participating. For our combined winter sports, we have 1 student playing hockey at Cazenovia, 5 students swimming at Sherwin-Earlville, and 2 students wrestling at Morrisville. Modified basketball for boys and girls will begin on January 3rd with a total of 29 male and female student athletes signed up to participate.
Will they play together or separately?
Separate. HCS was successful this fall with our first indoor sport of the school year. We've been a model for other schools in the Center State Conference that did not have fall indoor sports, as they have transitioned to indoor winter sports with COVID protocols. Winter sports are off to a great start, and our success is because of the diligence of our coaches and student athletes. Thank you to the custodial staff for always making sure our gyms are ready for practices and games, and to our transportation department for driving our athletes to their away competitions. Thank you to the board and the HCS administration for your continued support of athletics. I'm Lee Freeth, Athletic Director.
So the hub, we got that email, says membership to the hub. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only making the call, but I don't think that that's something that we.
I didn't actually understand it enough to, so what are the membership dues and what would they do for us, if anything?
Well, first, have we ever been part of anything like this?
And
Well,
that's,
it's new.
Seemed like
see,
a
and that's the thing,
intention of our school.
Yeah.
I don't think that we do these types of memberships, so I don't think that we need to, not answer that, but to worry about those pieces. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only
I'm
one.
very uncomfortable with
Joint
I don't,
in that piece.
I don't think we're the
Intended audience.
Yeah,
it's not
Yeah.
allowed
We're just
either.
on a
We're not a
mailing
business.
list to
Right.
keep us up in the loop.
Okay, so done. Great discussion. Thank you.
But I do appreciate all the work that they do, and I'm sure you guys do as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So it's not any, thing we're saying about the work they do, it's just, it's not right for us.
We have moved to community participation. Seeing anybody in the room that would like to come up?
That hasn't already.
That hasn't already.
Debbie,
That's just Debbie. No.
that's enough.
You don't wanna-
I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters regarding the employment of particular individuals, and we will not be voting
I mean,
after.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor to move to executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Sorry,
Thank you.
but we need a break.
I've been telling Michelle for an hour I need a break.
I know,
I know,
I know.
I can't.
Travis, you said, at the